I got loyalty, got royalty inside my DNA. I got love, peace, got war and peace inside my DNA. I got joy and pain and joy inside my DNA.
Hello guys, welcome back to my channel The Fanfic Fantasy. Join us as we explore the world of fanfiction and fantasy and bring you the best story and discussions. This is the third part of What If Neglected Naruto Was Trained by Rayleigh. So give this video a like and subscribe for more videos in future. So let's get into the fanfic. Turning back the clock, we come to a bustling little island known as Karakura Town. A town that spanned all the island, buildings and rural areas as far as the eye could see, and friendly citizens by the handful. Just about everyone on the island knew each other, creating a welcoming and encouraging energy. They enjoyed a peaceful life, thanks to being so out of the way, meaning that pirate attacks were few and far between. It is because of their innocuous, unassuming lifestyle that made the island the perfect target for the dark force that was slowly making its way toward them. And no one would have expected from where such a threat would come. Tao, hey, Ichigo's crying again. A young girl with dark hair, garbed in a karate gi and a sparring gear, pointed to a downed Ichigo Kurosaki who was crying his eyes out after getting punched by the girl. Another win for Tatsuki, a young tan boy with shaggy brown hair and his eyes sat on the sidelines with other children and two adults. What were you expecting? Ichigo never wins. Another young girl with a round head and dark hair sighed with a stern look on her face. Rukia-chan, you shouldn't say things like that. You have to be nice or Kurosaki-kun will feel worse. A girl with orange hair parted to the left with a beret admonished the girl. Gaining a ditzy smile, she placed her hand near her mouth to project a shout. Good job, Ichigo-kun. You lasted much longer than before. She crossed her arms and looked to her friends with a triumphant smile, believing she accomplished something great. Ichigo seemed to cry even louder when he heard that. Yeah, Orihime-chan. That seemed to make him feel better. A 5-year-old girl sat cross-legged with her hand holding her head up and her elbow on top of her knee, an apathetic look on her face while watching her older brother cry. Ikai Nyai is hurt, Karin-chan. You could try being a little nicer. A girl of similar age shook her sister by the shoulder. Isn't he a boy? He shouldn't be crying after getting his ass kicked anyway. Karin calmly answered her sister, ignoring the shaking. Seems Ichigo-chan is the same as ever. A young man's sweat dropped, watching the fiasco, and turned to the assembled children. And no one seems to care about his pain either. Sora, is that a slight against my parenting? A man shot up with a loud shout, finally deciding to take action in an over-the-top manner. Karin, he pointed dramatically at the girl. Karin looked to her father with the same apathy she had for most things. The man walked next to his daughter and put a firm hand onto her shoulder, a resolute and hardened look on his face as he stared off into the distance. Ironically, the direction where his son was still crying but had at least worked his way to his knees. Men are allowed to cry all the same as women. I'd say that real men have to cry ... It shows their sensitivity, and that they are in tune with their emotions. My son may have lost the battle ... but his war. Isshin began to cry soft tears. His war has already been won. Shouldn't you go help him or something? Karin pried her father's hand off her with nary a look in his direction. She would never humor his stupidity as long as she lived. You're right. Isshin hopped over the children in front of him and ran to his son. Ichigo, don't worry, Daddy's here to make everything better. Isshin made to envelop his son in a bear hug to comfort him. Wham! ... Only for his face to meet the soles of Ichigo's feet as the child drop-kicked his father, an angry expression on his face. Keep away from me, you creep. I don't want any comforting from you. Ichigo shouted angrily. Isshin flew back, going past the group as they had prematurely moved aside since they were used to this occurrence. When he hit the tatami mats behind them, Isshin painfully crawled to a specific mat, set it aside ... and pulled out an enlarged picture of a woman with wavy brown hair before beginning to cry over it. My dear Masaki, do you see how our children treat me? How many of those have you hidden around town? Ichigo shouted, grabbing his dad in a headlock. Sanyuzu whined. Haven't we gotten enough complaints from everyone about this? He won't be satisfied until we rip them all up. Karin looked her father in the eyes and ripped the picture of her mother, a sadistic smile on her face while watching his. Karin, how could you do that to your mother? Isshin cried out. Because it isn't her, and it isn't healthy for you to be projecting on these anyway. She punctuated her point by fully tearing the photo. Masaki, who is supposed to be the adult here, I honestly forget. Tatsuki watched with the crowd as the odd family messed around. The spectacle a regular occurrence on the island. Alright, you three. Time for lunch. You can go back to beating up Isshin-san later. Sora calmed the children. Yeah, lunchtime. All the kids cheered at the promise of food and hanging out with each other. The group then made their way out of the dojo to get their food, walking through their town with smiles on their faces as they all waved at the passerby who gave their own smiles in return. The children running ahead and playing with each other under the watchful eye of the two adults. Soon the group of children was sat under a tree, eating the food they had gotten and talked about their day. All done, Onigiri dipped in wasabi with just a hint of natto. Oriheim held her concoction up, the dish radiating an oppressive, dark aura that frightened her friends. There are so many things wrong with what she just said, Rukia sweat. I feel an ominous presence from that thing. Ichigo shuddered. Is it alive? Yuzu asked her brother innocently. I wouldn't rule it out. Karin backed away. Even bugs won't go near it. Chad saw flies fall to the ground when they approached the food. Tatsuki-chan, want some? Oriheim turned to her best friend expectantly. The assembled all turned to Tatsuki, wondering whether she'd give in this time and try one of the girl's weird combinations. Tatsuki, herself, gulped when Oriheim began to edge the dish closer and closer, the aroma practically making her gag. Maybe another time, Oriheim. I wouldn't want you to miss out on a new flavor. Tatsuki maneuvered herself out of the minefield effortlessly. Aw, thanks, Tatsuki-chan. You're so considerate. Oriheim bit into her treat with a smile, missing her friend wipe her brow and sigh. The others gave claps of amazement. It never gets old, Ichigo applauded his friend. Basically in art form, Rukia nodded her head with her eyes closed. Shut up. Tatsuki growled at them. They all fell into a comfortable silence after that, eating their lunch before laying in the grass in a circle and staring at the clouds. Though young Oriheim broke that silence, a finger on her chin as she decided to voice something that had been bothering her. Say, Tatsuki-chan, how many times have you beaten Kurosaki-kun? Oriheim turned her head to the tomboy. It must have been a lot, Rukia spoke up. It'd be easier just to say that Ikai has never won and leave it at that. Karin picked her ear insensitively as her words stabbed Ichigo. I think it's been about 0.300 times since starting at the dojo. The little crybaby hasn't even hit me once either. Tatsuki stuck her tongue out. RRRGH, just you wait. When I beat you for the first time, you'll eat those words. Ichigo sat up. Gotta beat me first for me to do that, berry boy. Tatsuki got into Ichigo's face and the two glared intently at each other. Yuzu pulled on Ichigo's pant leg, wanting to ask her own question. Ikai, why did you want to learn how to fight anyway? Yuzu asked innocently. Her brother, from what she remembered in her earlier years, hadn't really cared about fighting or strength. But then well, someone she could vaguely remember was lost. And he changed. 'Cause I have to be strong, Yuzu-chan. Ichigo assured with a smile. And how's that working out for you? Rukia smirked evilly. It's a work in progress. Ichigo whined. Ichigo. Chad put a hand on his friend's shoulder, coming to his defense. Thanks, Chad, at least you. You have no skill in the martial arts, Chad said bluntly with his ever-stoic face. Chad, you've been at it for 2 years, Ikai, and you haven't made any progress. Your time would be better spent doing something else, Karin chimed in. I know. But it's the best way to get stronger on the island. Ichigo sat with his knees to his chest and looked to the sunset. You and Yuzu probably don't remember too well, 'cause you were so young. But Mom was great. She could quiet you guys no matter what had started you crying. I could get hurt while playing and she'd be there in an instant to patch me up. Even Dad was less of an idiot. But not much. Ichigo smiled in remembrance. His friends and sisters simply sat and listened to the normally closed-off Ichigo share with them. Yuzu and Karin couldn't remember their mother very well. Without their father's vast amount of pictures of her, they probably wouldn't even know what she looked like. All the two could remember was a kind figure being there for their family. The center of their universe. Then pirates attacked. The older children remembered the panic and surprise on the adults' faces as they frantically ran about the island, trying to save themselves and each other while scooping the children up as they ran. Their peaceful island's first and worst attack. But the crew had been desperate and didn't care whether they attacked a well-known or piddly island as long as they could restock and plunder. Dad took the two of you. But I was out, walking home from playing with everyone, so I was alone. When everyone started running, I was confused and made my way home. And ran into one of the pirates. Ichigo bit his lip. He didn't care who he attacked and pointed a gun right at me. And I froze. Ichigo gripped his pants and his hair covered his eyes. I thought I was going to die, right there, without getting to see you guys again and no one would find me. Then Mom pushed me out of the way. She covered me from the bullet and told me to hold still. The pirate thought he'd got both of us and left. By the time I got the courage to move again. She was gone. She died while protecting me. And smiled the whole time so I wouldn't be scared. The group all looked down at that, Yuzu and Karin finally learning what had happened to their mother since Isshin had kept it from them until the girls could handle it. And the older kids got to hear of the event from the only one that was there, having attended Masaki's funeral but never knowing the cause. I couldn't help thinking that if I was stronger, I could have saved Mom instead of her dying to save me. It's because of me that she's gone, and you haven't gotten to truly meet her. Ichigo then got up and crossed his arms. But then the Marines showed up and drove the pirates back. They wiped the floor with all of them in no time flat and saved everyone ... And that's what I want. Ichigo looked to his friends and his sisters with a wide smile. I want to be strong so I can protect everyone. And when I'm old enough, I'll join the Marines and go out and save other people from pirates, too. So no one will have to lose their loved ones ever again. I'll become the strongest Marine in the world. Ichigo shouted resolutely. PSHT, you, a Marine. What are you going to do? Cry on them. Tatsuki teased the orange-haired boy. Shut up, Tatsuki. I'll show you. Just watch me become a Marine. I'll make time for all the little people like you. Ichigo shot back. You'll be a Marine when Oriheim eats normal food. Tatsuki glared. I think Kurosaki-kun can do it. Oriheim spoke up. Huh? Everyone smartly asked. I mean, Kurosaki-kun has dedicated so much to do this ... It's hard not to believe in him, you know. So, I'll root for Kurosaki-kun. Oriheim. Ichigo smiled softly. And I'll come with you. What? Ichigo tilted his head along with the others. Well, being a Marine is bound to be dangerous, and I couldn't bear the thought of you being hurt ... So I'll be a Marine with you and be your doctor. That way you'll be in one piece when you come back here. Oriheim beamed so brightly that the children had to turn away lest they be overcome by the cute. Oriheim, I could never ask you to do that, Ichigo told the girl. You aren't. I want to. Oriheim bluntly replied. I'll come too, Chad chimed in with a smile. Chad, you are reckless, Ichigo. You'd probably jump headfirst into danger without thinking about the consequences and end up getting into trouble ... So you'll need a shield to watch your back. Chad stuck his fist out to his best friend who bumped it with his own. I wouldn't have it any other way. Guess that means I have to come too, Rukia spoke up with a knowing smile and giving a side glance to the three. You wouldn't be able to get anywhere without a navigator, and I've always wanted to see other islands, Rukia said casually, but with a genuine smile in her face. They all looked to Tatsuki at that point, expecting her to join in on the tender moment only to see her look away with a scoff. I'm not joining the Marines and working under a guy that can't beat me in a spar, Tatsuki scowled. Now, joining the Marines and having the crybaby be my cabin boy, that would be worth it. Tatsuki smirked, imagining that future where she ordered Ichigo around. What the hell kind of fantasy is that? Ichigo slapped the girl's fantasy out of the sky and into the stratosphere. I'm gonna be in charge, and maybe I'll let you be my cabin girl. I refer you to my previous statement of Oriheim making a normal meal before that happens. Tatsuki butted heads with Ichigo. Let's agree that the stronger of us gets to be in charge of the ship, then, berry boy. Tatsuki smiled with Ichigo following. It's a deal. The boy then grabbed his friends in a group hug, a big smile on his face. We'll be the best squad that the Marines have ever seen. I'll join too, Ikai-ni, Yuzu cheered. Yeah, no, I'm not letting you do that, Yuzu-chan. Karin pulled her twin down when she made to join the burgeoning Marines. But why not? We don't need him worrying about us while out at sea, for one. Ikai-ni has enough on his plate, but at least he's got everyone watching him, so you don't have to worry. Karin whispered the last part to her sister. While the children talked about their futures, Isshin and Sora stood by listening with smiles on their faces. The bond that they shared was endearing, and they were sure that they would be able to survive out there if they were together. My little boy is living up to his namesake. I'm so proud of you, Ichigo. Isshin popped out to grab his son but was kicked once again. Back off, old man. Ichigo proceeded to grab his father's legs, sit on his back, and pull. Ah, great submission hold, son. Come along. You all, I'll be taking you home. Sora, being the responsible adult, ushered the children away, leaving the Kurosakis to their antics. Oriheim, I'll be working late again tonight, so I need you to be a big girl, Sora told his sister. Okay, Onii-chan. Oriheim saluted, then turned to speak to Tatsuki. So, Tatsuki-chan, I was thinking ... when I'm a Marine. What if I upgrade myself and become a robot girl? Then I could fight and heal people. She smiled. Oriheim, whatever world you live in, I don't know if I'm fascinated by it or afraid of it. Tatsuki shook her head. The group dispersed with all the Kurosakis waving goodbye as they made their way home. When the family of four made it to their home, a box of fruits met them at the doorstep. Ah, looks like our payment was delivered. Isshin rubbed his hands together oddly. It's just fruit. Karin kicked the box to the side, making her way inside. Wrong, Karin-chan. This is payment from a grateful patient because of a job well done. I thought it was payment because he didn't have any bully to pay you with, San. Yuzu questioned innocently, freezing her father in place. That's beside the point, Yuzu-chan. Isshin fell to his knees with tears running down his face. Then instantly grew serious when turning to address his son. Ichigo, you can bring the box in. Why can't you do it? I'm tired from sparring all day. Ichigo whined. You mean tired from being a sandbag, don't you? Karin poked her head through the doorway. Just do it. Men don't complain, Ichigo, and as the physician here my word is law. Isshin grabbed his bicep and stuck a pose. I hesitate to call you that, Ichigo grumbled, grabbing the box and putting in their kitchen. Upon placing the box on the counter, Ichigo decided to get back at his dad by eating one of the fruits that he was so proud of forgetting. With a mischievous smile, the young orange-haired boy reached into the box, dug around, and pulled out an odd-looking fruit. He'd never seen a fruit like this before. It had odd swirls around it and a curled stem. And as the boy stared at the fruit it felt as if there was a presence coming from it, compelling him to bite into it. Ichigo dazedly brought the peculiar thing up to his mouth. And bit into it. Blegh. He shouted in disgust. Hey, Ichigo, what's going on? Why do you yell like that? Isshin and the girls appeared in the kitchen with curious brows raised. It was this thing. That guy must have been messing with you. Old man, the boy wiped his mouth, trying to forget the taste of the fruit. Isshin examined the fruit and grew puzzled. I'm not sure what this is. Isshin took it from his son's hand to have a closer look. Looks like you just had bad luck, son. Everything else in here looks fine. Maybe this one just went bad. And it serves you right for trying to eat these before everyone else. Isshin laughed at his son's misfortune and tossed the spoiled fruit into the garbage. No, it doesn't. I was just trying to teach you a lesson. Ichigo jumped up and grabbed his dad's collar indignantly. Okay, girls, time to get washed up and ready for bed. Isshin ignored the boy shaking him and addressed his girls nonchalantly. All right, San. Yuzu saluted. Yeah, Karin trudged away. Now then, Isshin grabbed his son and began to wrestle with him. Who do you think you're trying to teach a lesson to, brat? I have to repeat myself. Losing your hearing, old man. Ichigo shot back. Out on the ocean, near Karakura, a marine ship sailed smoothly through the night's dark ocean, ferrying many sailors that were moving about to keep it running. At the bow of the ship stood 3 men. I dunno about you two, but I'm getting a bit bored of sailing around, island to island, a smooth voice said sarcastically. We shall sail as long as the Vice Admiral wills it. You know this. If you want the mission to be over, perhaps you should do a better job at scouting potential targets, another voice reprimanded. Below the ship, held in its bowels, an unearthly wail could be heard along with crashes. Despite the circumstances that should stir the sailors, none of the deckhands had seemed frightened by the commotion or even jarred. They all kept about their business. He's getting antsy again. Guess we'd better get to that next island sooner rather than later. The first voice looked to the ship's wooden floor unconcerned. And tell me what is that next island? A deep voice asked, coming from the leader the Vice Admiral. That would be Karakura. Think we'll be finishing our research this time around. Whether it ends in success or failure, something is learned from each attempt. I get one step closer to perfecting the virus. Though I cannot lie about wanting more definite results, the Vice Admiral nudged up the glasses on his face. Look on the bright side, sir. We'll have a small reprieve from testing for a while. We've received correspondence to return to the Grand Line. The second voice said. True, though that only annoys me. Release it. The Vice Admiral commanded a random marine. A hidden door appeared on the ship's hull, releasing something too hard to make out in the dark of night. It dove into the ocean, making a beeline for Karakura, its bubbled trail the only evidence that it was approaching the innocent, unknowing populace. We'll arrive officially in the morning. Call headquarters then. Let them know that another outbreak has been found. And we will attempt a suppression and rescue. At once, Vice Admiral Eisen. The two voices nodded their heads as the moon shone on their superior officer, showing a gently smiling face. The next day, Ichigo flew headfirst into the wall of the dojo, losing once again. Another win for Tatsuki. Rukia made a tick in a small notepad. Along with terrible drawings of rabbits. Still have to admire the resolve. Chad crossed his arms. Hang on, Kurosaki-kun. Oriheim yanked the boy out of the hole. Not even a second later, he sprung back up on his feet, a bloody nose, and fired up for yet another spar. Another round, Tatsuki. I'll be ready this time. Ichigo wiped his nose and walked back into the ring. Tatsuki shook her head and turned her back to the boy, placing her arms behind her head as she walked out of the ring. No, I think 5 times is enough today. Tatsuki waved him off. We didn't spar 5 times today. Ichigo raged behind the girl, watching her grab her stuff to go change out of her gi. Ichigo, you did, Chad spoke up. Ichigo turned to address his friend for not taking his side in the argument. But before he could begin to speak, Chad rose his finger and pointed behind the orange head. Looking behind himself, Ichigo saw a row of holes in the wall. 5 of them. A shadow cast over Ichigo's face at being proven wrong, and the fact Tatsuki had beaten him headfirst into the wall each time today. Let's do 5 more, Ichigo shouted, acting like he didn't see the evidence of his loss. Is Ikai Nyai punch drunk or something? Karin whispered to Yuzu. Maybe it's how he shows that he likes Tatsuki-chan. Yuzu whispered back. I do not like her, him. The two answered angrily at the girls, having gained a sixth sense as they were often accused of having a crush on the other. See, Yuzu giggled at them. What? Karin saw the two look ready to rip each other's head off, taking their comments as meaning that they weren't good enough for the other. Just as Isshin and Sora were about to break the children up, a commotion was heard outside as a drove of people ran past the dojo. Shopkeepers left their shops unattended, children stopped playing in the streets and started dragging their parents toward the spectacle. Isshin grabbed one of the bystanders as he passed by the dojo's doorway, deciding to ask him what was happening. Hey, buddy, what's going on? Where's everybody headed? Isshin jabbed his thumb in the direction that his fellow islanders were heading to. It's amazing, Isshin-san. A ship from Navy headquarters just arrived. And it's carrying a vice admiral. The man spoke out of breath. Everyone's heading that way to see what he's here for. When he finished, he went back to running with the crowd. Something serious must be going on if a vice admiral of all people was sent. Isshin rubbed his chin. I think we should all head home as soon as possible and stay out of their way. Whatever they're doing, we should steer clear, Isshin reasoned. Wait, Dad. Ichigo went to his father. You called me ... Dad. Isshin cried. This is my chance to see a high-ranking Marine. I don't want to miss this chance, Dad. It shows me where I need to get. Ichigo said with resolve shining in his eyes. My son. Isshin cried and hugged Ichigo. ... If you keep calling me Dad, I'd do anything. Don't push your luck, old man. Ichigo deadpanned and moved out of his father's arms with the man freezing in place as a solitary wind blew through the now empty dojo. It has to be fast, all of you. I need to work late tonight, Sora called behind the excitable children. This is a great chance. Ichigo cheered. Yep, you get to see someone actually strong in person, right? Tatsuki teased. Yeah, Ichigo didn't rise to the provocation, too excited to get angry. Yeah, Tatsuki smiled. Coming into view as the crowd gathered around the port. A large white and blue ship was docked there with the regular sailors furling the sails while the 3 men were greeting the islanders. One of them, being surrounded by children, was a black man with his dark brown hair being done into braids, making up a ponytail behind his head and a few loose strands falling over his face. He wore a standard Marine uniform, but over it, he wore a Haori with the Marine symbol on its front over his heart, and the Marine's blue coloring found on a pattern lining the bottom of the Haori. The man's most interesting features were his blank lavender-colored eyes behind clear sunglasses, and the orange scarf tied around his neck reminiscent of a noose. Whoa, are you blind? How can you be a Marine if you can't see? He must be really powerful if they let him in with that handicap, Orihime whispered to her friends. I assure you, little one, I am. And it isn't as big a handicap as you'd believe. The man turned to the group. You heard me. Orihime hid behind Chad in embarrassment. Of course, when one sense is taken, the others are heightened to compensate. I can tell a lot more about you than just your position. Really, like what? Orihime walked forward. I can tell that you bathed recently from the smell of the soap that you used, and from your voice, I know you're young. Possibly around 9 years of age. And from another feeling I'm getting ... you're in love with someone. The man was silenced when he was hit in the face by an enraged Tatsuki. Back off, creep. Tatsuki huffed, standing in front of the flustered girl. Sorry, sometimes I overstep my bounds. My name is Kaname Tozen, he introduced, nonplussed as a welt formed on his head. Creeping the children out again are you, Tozen? Another of the men came over from his position, though he seemed all too happy to interact since people seemed to be avoiding him ... and for good reason. The man had short silver hair and wore the same uniform that Tozen wore, but the thing that set him apart from his fellow Marine was his thin appearance and the unsettlingly wide grin that stretched his face to the point that his eyes were narrowed to slits. This combination gave the man an unapproachable, creepy air about him that made others steer clear of him. I would think that's your job, Jin. Tozen looked to his ally. Now that ain't true. Kids love me. Jin crouched down to look into Rukia's eyes. Isn't that right? You look like you'd stab me in the back. Rukia crossed her arms. No need to be afraid of that, sweetheart. Unless, of course, you were a pirate, Jin said with shadows stretching across his face, scarily. This made Rukia hide behind Chad much like Oraheim did, only driven by the uneasy feeling the man had given her when he'd said that. Why does everyone hide behind me? Chad's sweat dropped. See, Jin, Tozen pointed out to the man. Guess you might have a point after all. Jin chuckled while keeping his gaze on the unsettled kids. While his friends interacted with the two Marines, Ichigo had his eyes on the man that was surrounded by the most people, all with the kindest smile on his face. Ichigo was certain that this man had to be the man in charge of all these sailors. He had an air of power about him yet seemed so personable. He wore a haori similar to the other two, but on its back was the word for justice and vice admiral. The man had brown hair and wore square glasses, giving him the look of a brainiac. His kind smile was his selling point as it calmed those around him and made them lower their guard around him. Seemingly noticing the young orange-haired boy, the vice admiral pulled himself away from the children that were admiring his unsheathed blade. Ichigo watched the man sheathe his blade, a normal katana, nothing special about it barring its guard which was an octagonal shape. Hello there. The man smiled softly to the young boy who blushed slightly when he was caught staring at the high-ranking officer. And what is your name? I'm Kurosaki Ichigo, sir. Ichigo stiffened when addressed by the tall man. He who protects, a very strong name for one so young. The Marine pushed up his glasses. Thanks, I'm gonna be a Marine when I grow up, so I can protect everyone from pirates. Ichigo exclaimed in confidence. Really? That's right, and all my friends are gonna join up too. They'll be my crew. Ichigo gestured to his friends, only to be caught in a headlock by a grinning Tatsuki. I already told you, I ain't working for anyone that can't beat me in a fight, but cabin boy is still a position when I'm a Marine. Tatsuki nougated the orange head until he pried himself out of her grip. Sorry, sir, this one likes to talk big but it's all bark. He's too much of a crybaby to be a Marine on his own, so we're gonna watch his back. Tatsuki clapped Ichigo on his back with a grin. The man chuckled at the interaction, seeing the group of children surround the orange-haired boy, and a brown-haired girl being held back by a deadpan dark-haired girl with an unamused look on her face while she did it. I wouldn't be too sure of that, young lady, the man grinned when he saw the children's questioning gazes. Over my years and experience, the weak are the ones that you must watch out for. The sun shone over the man's glasses, hiding his eyes, because they are the ones that hold the most potential. The man's words made the assembled onlookers' eyes widen, the adults smiling at the encouragement to the children, and the children wondering if what he said could be true. I'm sure that young Ichigo here will be a force to be reckoned with when he gets older, and I for one would love to see how far he has come at that time. The man mussed the boy's hair, his soft smile still in place. You sure about that? You don't know this kid like I do, Tatsuki said skeptically. The vice admiral laughed. Only time will tell. At this point, Isshin decided to voice the inquiry that all the adults had on their minds once they'd seen a vice admiral of all people arrive on their island without any warning or noticeable problem. Excuse me, sir, but I think I speak for every islander when I ask you, why are you here? Is there some kind of problem? Well, back to business. The man looked across the crowd ready to explain his appearance. I am Vice Admiral Aizen Sasuke. I have been tasked by Navy headquarters itself to investigate strange goings on here in the Southern Sea. When hearing this, the bystanders all began to murmur nervously, wondering what could be happening in the South Blue that warranted such a high-ranking individual to come and deal with the matter. Vice admirals were known to mainly be deployed in the Grand Line because of the level of pirate that was frequented on that stretch of sea, so if one came to a blue of all places, the threat must have been serious. What kind of goings on? Are we safe? The scared muttering of the populace began, begging the three Marines for any information. That is what we are here to investigate. Apparently, 2 separate islands have been left completely devoid of all life, and evidence suggests that the citizens had been present. And, simply put, their disappearances were anything but natural. Aizen allowed the information to sink into the crowd. Our investigations on those islands have led us to believe that a dangerous wild beast has been traveling between islands, devouring their residents. The news rocked the assembled residents, fearing for their lives and wondering how a beast could completely decimate an island's populace not just once but twice. Given that the beast would need to rest, we've concluded that it may appear here in Karakura next if it hasn't already. So, we have arrived to search for the beast's presence or defend the island from its arrival. We would like you all to return to your homes before nightfall. We have reason to believe that the creature is mainly nocturnal and won't roam during the day unless disturbed, Aizen announced, making the bystanders clamor to their homes once they saw that the sun was beginning to set, thanking the Vice Admiral for his help while leaving. Come along. You three heard what Vice Admiral Aizen said. Ishin scooped up the girls and looked to his son still standing before the marine despite the panic around him. I could help you track it down. I want to help the island, too, Ichigo offered, though still scared as could be told from the slight tremor in his voice. Ichigo, his father called in a slight reprimand for such an idea. Aizen laid his palm on the boy's head with his smile still on his face, crouching down to eye level as he spoke. Thank you for the offer, Ichigo-kun. But even with all of your potential you still have to grow into it. Aizen let the boy down gently, and upon seeing his downtrodden expression the man ruffled Ichigo's hair, and continued, but don't let that diminish your spirit. Just try even harder to reach your peak, that way there won't be anything you can't overcome. The young boy brightened up at that and quickly ran to his family when urged again by his father, waving bye to the brave, powerful marines that had arrived to protect his home in his stead until he could do it himself. Sora Nyai, are you sure that you should work tonight? Orihime voiced her worry to her brother as he carried her on his back while taking the other children home. You heard what Vice Admiral Aizen said. Sora bit his lip. Nothing else would make him feel better than going home and staying safe, but he had no choice in the matter. To make ends meet, working as hard as he did was essential to his and Orihime's survival. Sorry, Orihime-chan, I still have to work ... but with the Vice Admiral on the job, I'm sure I'll be safe, Sora assured. If only he knew. Ichigo excitedly hopped into bed, having to be told in the first place to even head into his room. The boy had talked about Aizen nonstop, and the Vice Admiral's faith in Ichigo had riled him up to insane levels. While a welcome change from his stoic aloofness, the energy he was putting out was on par with their father ... and no one wanted that. The boy couldn't wait to grow up and reach his dream. Now more than ever it felt like he could reach it. If a Vice Admiral straight from Navy HQ believed in him, there was nothing he couldn't achieve. The boy soon closed his eyes and drifted off to dreamland, where his future was laid out before him in a straight line, ending with him being home with his family and friends, the island completely protected from pirates along with the rest of the ocean thanks to his exploits. Ichigo's life could go nowhere but up. Huff huff, Sora ran through the darkened streets of his home in a panic, constantly looking behind him for an invisible pursuer. The evidence that something was indeed there was the inhuman roar that chased him. This must be the beast, Sora screamed in his mind. Vice Admiral, someone help me. The monstrous figure leaped at the poor man and bit into his shoulder, making him scream in pain. This scream was a beacon for two parties, the Vice Admiral and his two subordinates, and one young orange-haired boy. Ichigo had gotten up to relieve himself in the middle of the night when he'd heard the blood-curdling scream. The sound froze the young boy in his tracks, wondering who had traveled out into the night with the danger present on the island. Ichigo wanted to just ignore the scream, believing in the heroes to find whoever was in pain, until he heard the desperate plea for help. He couldn't ignore something like that, child or no. I have to get out there, Ichigo gulped as he quickly, yet quietly went downstairs and put on some shoes for his night trek. Stop, Ichigo, a voice the boy didn't recognize said in a calm, deep voice. Dad, Karin, Yuzu, Ichigo called into the darkness. No, I am not physically present in your home. I reside within you, the voice told the boy. What's that supposed to mean? Who are you? Unless you want your family to know what you are doing, I'd advise you to keep your voice down. Speak through your mind and I will hear it. Am I crazy? I've never had a voice in my head before. Ichigo held his head in his hands. You are still sane, Ichigo. I have only formed recently within you and know that I mean you no harm. I am a part of your soul, the voice explained. Where do you come from? Ichigo asked aloud. Do you remember your conception? All I know is that while I may have come into being recently, I've always been here. The voice ignored the boy's slip-up, deciding to continue with their conversation. And what do I call you, then? ... is my name. Are you joking with me? I didn't hear anything. Ichigo crossed his arms. It appears that you cannot hear me yet. Unsurprising, given how young you are, the voice sighed. Well, whoever you are, I'm going out there. Someone needs help. Ichigo walked to the door. And just what do you plan to do? I'll think of something. I have to, Ichigo argued back. The Marines are here for that reason. What good could a boy do against something that could wipe out entire islands? If you're supposed to be a part of me, then you know why I have to go. The voice sighed. I know, even if I'm against it, I know. All I'm going to do is see if I can help out in any way. If Vice Admiral Aizen is there, I'll have no reason to stick around. I'll hold you to that, Ichigo. It is sound, if not foolish to do. But because I am against this course of action, I won't be assisting you if you find yourself in a bind, the voice said with finality. Fine by me, what good would a voice in my head do anyway? Ichigo shrugged uncaringly. When you are ready you will know. If I allowed you to use my power, it would put you in more danger simply because you'll feel as if you can accomplish anything. Really? Ichigo wondered if the voice was pulling his leg. Indeed. Know this, Ichigo, though we are the same we are also different. What you want to protect isn't the same as what I want to protect. The voice warned the boy enigmatically. Fine by me. Ichigo returned to the voice in his, finally making his way out of his house. Karakura streets. The young boy made his way through the darkness, trying his best to find the person in distress. Before long, the boy had come across the man that he recognized as Sora, crawling on the ground in pain while holding his shoulder, breathing heavily and coughing. Behind the poor older brother was what could only be described as a monster. A drooling maw found on its mask-like face with a black body, stalking Sora as its prey. Approaching the injured man as slowly as possible, seemingly enjoying the man's helpless state before delivering the finishing blow. Sora, Ichigo shouted in his mind, ready to burst from his hiding place, behind a building, to go assist the brother of his friend. Wait, Ichigo. Something is wrong with the beast, the voice in the boy's head spoke up, halting his advance. Ichigo made to speak to the voice but covered his mouth when he remembered where he was. Instead, the boy thought his words to his mysterious watcher. What are you talking about? He peeked around the corner and saw that what the voice said was true. The masked monstrosity looked terrified as it backed away from the injured Sora. It shook with a deep-seated terror when its eyes laid upon three figures. Ikamaru Jin, Tozen Kanem, ... and Vice Admiral Aizen Sasuke. With each step the three took toward the downed Sora, the beast would take one backward while submissively lowering its head. See, look, I didn't have to come out here after all. The Marines have it handled. Ichigo smiled. He decided to stick around and get an exclusive look at the Marines in action. The voice decided to stay silent, observing with a critical eye just what would happen next. Thank you, Vice Admiral. I thought I was done for. Sora propped himself up using his arm, a grateful smile on his face as he raised his hand up for the Marine to take. I never imagined that the monster would come for me. I thought I'd die here and leave Orihime alone. Sora began to tear up. I have to get back to her. She must be worried sick. Yes, you do. The Vice Admiral kept his soft smile on his face. Shunk, ... as he plunged his sword into Sora's shoulder. It took both Ichigo and Sora a second to register what had just happened. The spurt of blood that came from the downed man had shocked the two back to reality. Sora slowly traced his gaze from the sword to where it was currently lodged in his shoulder and screamed into the empty streets. What's he doing? Ichigo made to leave his hiding spot, only for his new guardian to stop him. Ichigo, there's nothing you can do. You can't expect me to just watch this. Ichigo shot back. I do. Things have gotten a lot more complicated. The best course of action is to gather information and report to a higher authority, the voice reasoned, though he could tell that the boy didn't like the idea. Vice Admiral Huff Why? Sora asked with his teeth grit and blood leaking from his mouth. Simple, because agitation and heightened emotions make the process go so much faster, the smiling man explained. As Sora started to ask, a white substance spewed from his mouth and eye, covering his face before beginning to harden and stretch across it slowly. The process seemed to pain the man as he clutched his chest and struggled to breathe, veins appearing on his temples as the odd muck continued to spread. You should feel honored, young man. Your sacrifice fuels Lord Aizen's research. This bloodshed is not without its silver lining. Tozen spoke reverently, using a different title to address his leader, though the words were most likely lost on Sora as at that moment the white liquid had finally completely hardened with a final scream of pain from him. Warg. His scream warped into a howl that pierced the night, causing the young onlooker to cover his ears. How is no one hearing this? Ichigo winced in pain. The now masked Sora stood up, looking lost and confused but otherwise human. Seems like we've got a success over here, Vice Admiral Jin commented nonchalantly. Aizen observed his handiwork with a critical eye and a straight face, walking around the creature formerly known as Sora. Seeming to finish his observation, the Vice Admiral turned to the other grotesque monster with a pitying gaze. With a chilling voice, he said, "No need for the obsolete." Then cut the creature down where it stood, its body disappearing into black flecks. Yet another failure. Jin raised a brow, keeping his eyes slit all the while. Oh. His eyes are vacant. He is of no use if he simply follows bestial instinct. Aizen spoke with half-lidded eyes, turning to regard his subordinates over his shoulder. Aizen inclined his head to the monstrous Sora, who seemed to be writhing beneath his skin, falling to his knees. Behold, Sora's skin began to change to black, resembling the original beast, and his legs fused to form a snake-like tail behind him. He also grew larger, looking like he'd be able to pick up an adult and hold him in one hand at least. Sora was no more. Wow, these guys just keep getting uglier and uglier, Jin said sarcastically, grin growing. Another failure. Forgive me, Lord Aizen. Tozen bowed his head to his superior in regret. There is no need for forgiveness, Kanem. Failure is a much more powerful learning tool than success, Aizen smiled. We are getting closer. Each new strain causes vastly different results and appearances. I don't believe it will be long now. Sigh, though it is unfortunate that with another failure comes another island lost. Aizen sighed. Still, his words seemed insincere. Ichigo covered his mouth, stopping himself from exclaiming in surprise, and attempted to steady his breathing. Hiding behind the corner of the building, the boy could only look down on the ground, trying to sort the things he'd just heard and seen. Another failure, another island. Has his Vice Admiral Aizen been behind those other islands' disappearance? Ichigo gulped, sweating profusely. But he's a marine. They're supposed to be the good guys. Heroes, Ichigo denied to himself. The boy turned back to see the rest of the tragedy and witnessed something that made his blood run cold. The Vice Admiral had made the creature submit to him as it bowed before the powerful naval officer, shaking slightly from what appeared to be the man's sheer presence. Go forth and end everyone on this island. Quickly, the monster, upon receiving its orders, or more like being set loose to sate itself, slithered off and disappeared into the darkness. Welp, guess it's time to head for HQ, Jin shrugged. Unfortunately, with Lord Aizen's position, he is essential to the upkeep in the Grand Line. We should be grateful they allowed him to come here to investigate at all. Tozen sneered at the thought of his master needing permission to move about. True, how long do you think before they're all wiped out? Jin asked. A day, perhaps two. It depends on who he gets to spread it and if those souls will be unfortunate enough to be agitated. Speeding up the process, Aizen told the two dismissively. At that, the trio decided to take their leave and return to the marine ship for the night. Left behind was Ichigo, crying silently and terrified about the future of his home. Now is not the time for wallowing, Ichigo. You have to run home as quickly and quietly as possible and await the morning. When everyone is awake. You'll have to convince someone to report this, the voice told the boy. Is this really happening? Vice, Aizen is behind all this. Ichigo grit his teeth in frustration. I understand how you feel, Ichigo, but you can't protect anyone if you don't act. The voice scolded the boy. Ichigo nodded, wiped his nose and eyes, and after checking to make sure the trio was gone, he fled the scene. With the three Marines, Jin was looking thoughtful before he asked his leader, say, Tozen, why didn't you take care of the little kid that was watching us? Because Lord Aizen told me not to, of course. If not for his command, that boy would be dead, Tozen said seriously. Oh, and why do that? Jin turned to his leader. I want to see what he will do. Hopefully he will subvert my expectations, Aizen chuckled softly, scanning his eyes in the direction that Ichigo had run off to, a soft smile on his face. Ichigo had come back to his home in a panic, wanting to wake his family up and tell them all that had transpired over the course of the night as soon as possible. The voice in his head, on the other hand, had advised the boy to take the rest of the night to himself and regain his wits. If he was panicked and hysterical, it would only lend to the incredulity of his statements, and he needed all the support he could get right now. So, the boy re-entered his home, eyes wide, replaying the events in his mind repeatedly, with it making less and less sense. He couldn't even get back to sleep, for each time he closed his eyes, Ichigo saw the creature in front of him, vividly, with a burning Karakura left in its wake. Everything, everyone, dead. He couldn't let Aizen get away with it. Ichigo. Isshin woke his son up with a nudge, squatting down to place a hand on the boy's shoulder. The boy woke with a start. His mind must have been so frayed that he simply passed out, since he didn't remember closing his eyes. He had his back against the hallway wall in front of his father's room, that way he could get Isshin's help as soon as he'd awakened. What are you doing sleeping on the floor, Ikai? Yuzu asked in worry. Karin was also worried, but hid it better than her other family members. Dad. Ichigo grabbed his father's collar. What's the matter? We have to We have to call the Navy before it's too late. We have to get as many Marines here as possible as fast as we can. Ichigo sobbed while he shouted. His family shared a look amongst each other, frowns on their faces as they realized something terrible must have happened to throw Ichigo's emotions out of whack. The three turned back to the boy, Isshin putting both hands on Ichigo's shoulders. He spoke. What happened? Last night, I saw Sora. I heard him scream. I thought there'd be trouble and I went out to help. Ichigo suppressed his crying, keeping his mind sharp as he recalled the dreadful events. You went out at night? Isshin asked. That isn't the problem right now. Ichigo told his father. Sora was attacked last night. I saw it. The monster that Aizen was talking about. It almost killed him. Sora-san, Orihime-chan's brother. Yuzu gasped with a hand to her mouth. So you came home. Why didn't you wake me then? Isshin moved to get medical supplies. No, that's not all that happened. I saw Aizen and those two other guys with him. Ichigo grit his teeth. He stabbed Sora. The Vice Admiral. Ichigo, you can't just throw that around. You have to be sure. I saw it all. Aizen stabbed Sora. And he turned him into the same kind of monster as the one he brought here and let Sora loose. Ichigo put his head in his hands. I don't know where either of them went after that. Or if he's gotten anyone. But I know they have to be stopped. Or Karakura will be the third island to be destroyed. With that, silence took the Kurosaki family as the three processed the information that Ichigo had given them. The weight of the situation bore down on them as they realized that they were the only ones that knew of this apparent tragedy. Did they see you? Isshin asked. I don't think so. They didn't even come after me when I ran. I wouldn't put it past a Vice Admiral to have noticed. If they've gotten away with this before, they wouldn't make such a simple mistake. Isshin rubbed his chin. It doesn't matter. All we have to do is call the Navy to come get them. Ichigo shouted. Isshin shook his head. That won't work. We're just civilians, without hard evidence of their wrongdoing. The Marines would have no reason to believe anything we say. A Vice Admiral is one of the cornerstones of the organization. They wouldn't get rid of one simply because we told them to. Ichigo didn't hesitate to come up with an answer. Then we capture Sora before he can get to anyone else. That should be more than enough for proof, right? If we could get our hands on him. But these things were supposed to have wiped out entire islands on their own. We wouldn't stand a chance against one, Isshin explained. But you might be on the right track. His kids gave him questioning looks, so he decided to elaborate. If Sora is a monster, then he'll have gone missing. And he has someone to take care of. Someone he'd never just up and disappear on without good reason. Orihime. Precisely. Orihime could at least testify to her brother missing even if just for a night because of how punctual he is due to his work. He would never leave her alone without letting her know in advance. And that fact would give us a chance, though small, to convince the Marines to investigate the beast and hopefully find a connection between Aizen and the incidents. Isshin finished. So, we should go to see Orihime-chan now then? Yuzu asked. I don't think so, Yuzu-chan. Karin spoke up finally with her own look of concentration. If that vice guy or whatever did all that, and he knew that Ikai was watching, then he might be watching him right now, waiting to see what we do. Karin-chan is right. Acting out of the ordinary is probably what they want so they can implicate us in their wrongdoing or silence us if we get too close to exposing them. The best thing we can do is go about our regular day like nothing happened, and Ichigo can talk to Orihime-chan about Sora today at the dojo. Once we get confirmation from her that he never returned, we can call the Marines on a den mushi and explain the situation to them and get soldiers here to evacuate the island at the very least. Isshin stood up at the point with a nervous sweat on his brow. Ichigo couldn't take it. This plan was much too intricate and slow for his liking, and it still wouldn't have Aizen necessarily punished for his misdeeds, and the boy let those very thoughts out. This won't work. Dad, it will take too long to do it this way. Who knows how long the Marines will take to get here. It could be too late. And what do you suggest we do, Ichigo? Isshin asked with a hard look in his eyes. If we tell everybody, then they won't be able to do anything about it. Everyone together could fight them back. Don't be an idiot. Isshin scolded his son, getting angry at the boy's suicide mission of a plan. The important thing here is saving all the lives here, not going after Aizen. I understand why you'd want to do that, but none of us are fighters, and even if we were, we could never hold a candle to those three. Going in half-cocked and hot-headed will only result in everyone paying for it with their lives. Isshin breathed heavily from the heightened emotions that were flaring up before he sighed. You don't just need physical strength to protect people, Ichigo. Just follow the plan and we can get everyone out of this. Ichigo was still unsure about this, but if his father was so sure that this could save Karakura, then he would trust the uncharacteristically serious man. If his plan looked like it was going south, then Ichigo resolved to himself that he'd make his stand against Aizen. And no matter how futile it seemed, The Kurosaki family then had a very awkward and silent breakfast, all of them attempting to steal their nerves, being forced to act like nothing was wrong in their lives and continue their day while knowing that it was anything but normal. It was a painful burden that they all had, and it was one that they must shoulder. When they arrived at the dojo, Ichigo immediately went over to his group of friends with his eyes set on Orihime specifically. Her presence here had surprised the Kurosakis since Sora would normally bring her, but with last night's events she shouldn't have been able to come. They planned to visit her home after the dojo visit to check on her and get her testimony for Sora's disappearance. So how did she end up here? Hey, Ichigo, ready to get your butt kicked again? Tatsuki started, but her rival had ignored her and went straight to the orange-haired girl. Oh, hi, Kurosaki-kun. Orihime blushed when he walked up to her. What are you doing here, Orihime? Ichigo asked while grabbing her arm. What do you mean? Orihime tilted her head in confusion. Did those blows to your head knock something loose, Ichigo? Chad asked with confusion tinged in his voice as well. With all eyes on him, the boy knew he had to think his next words over very carefully. I didn't see Sora-san outside or inside, so I thought that maybe you were taking the day off. Ichigo saved himself. Orihime said that Sora worked too late last night and was tired by the time he had made it home. Rukia informed Ichigo with a raised brow. Since when was Ichigo so observant about any of their circumstances? Sora Nyai-chan asked me to be a big girl and come to the dojo myself, and he'd pick us all up at the end. Orihime smiled brightly, unaware of the effect her words had on Ichigo. Sora came home. That's impossible, Ichigo thought, sharing a glance with his dad who just returned it with his own that conveyed for his son to continue acting natural, and they would figure out a backup plan later. Are you alright, Ichigo? Tatsuki asked when she saw him go silent and look down at the floor. Yeah, I'm fine, Tatsuki. Ichigo gave a smile, closing his eyes in the process. I was just worried that something might have happened to you too, Orihime. With that monster going around, someone missing could be scary. Sorry about worrying you guys. Ichigo made his way past his friends to the ring. Come on, Tatsuki, let's spar. They all knew something was wrong. That smile on Ichigo. It was fake. He never smiled like that. He only ever smirked even at his happiest around them. Whatever he was hiding. He was trying to keep them out of the loop and was taking it all on himself. They'd get to the bottom of this. The day went by relatively quickly for the kids. Ichigo still lost to Tatsuki, though they could tell that his heart and mind weren't in it as he flew from the ring repeatedly. The boy's eagerness to continue challenging Tatsuki wasn't there, and he would keep staring at nothing, seemingly forgetting where he was at random moments. By the time they were ready to go, Ichigo and his family had stayed behind slightly and looked to be talking about something serious since the boy and his father weren't acting as goofy as normal. And the atmosphere completely shifted when Sora started walking down the road to come get them. The Kurosaki family had the tiniest widening of their eyes when they saw the man give a small wave and sheepish smile. Hello everyone, sorry I wasn't here today. As I'm sure Orihime-chan told you, work had taken a serious toll on me the other night, so I thought it best to rest a little and let her come alone. I wouldn't want her to miss out on enjoying time with her friends, Sora told them. It's no problem, Sora. You shouldn't work yourself so hard, though. You'll make us worry. Isshin gave his patented dim-witted smile. Why don't you come back to the clinic and let me examine you? You've always worked so hard and that fatigue can't be good for you. Isshin suddenly became deadly serious when he posed the question to Sora. Sorry, Isshin-san, but I have to work again tonight, of course. I do have to work for a living, Sora politely declined. My door is always open, so don't hesitate. Isshin mentally frowned at the missed opportunity. I do have to apologize again, though. I still felt a tad exhausted, so we won't be able to join you all for lunch today. Sora looked apologetic. Really, Nyai-chan? Orihime sounded shocked. Afraid so. Say your goodbyes, you all. Sora told the children he was normally tasked with escorting home as he moved off down the road a bit. Dad, your plan isn't working. Ichigo softly shouted. All the evidence we were supposed to have is gone. You said that Sora was a monster. We couldn't have expected this. Something is fishy. We need to stay on alert and get back home. Now, Isshin grew nervous about this whole situation. No, we should go find Aizen or the monster ourselves. That's all the proof we need, Ichigo urged. No, I told you already, we don't stand a chance. We'll figure out what to do when we get home. Isshin denied his son. Just say goodbye and let's get home. No, Dad. You're wrong. I'll just have to do it myself. Ichigo balled his hands into tight fists. Don't you think you should trust your father? The voice made its return. He's only trying to keep you and everyone else safe from harm, Ichigo. He's being a coward. Is it cowardly to think your moves through and try and stop unnecessary bloodshed? When it's failing at every turn, it is. I'll go out and find that monster Sora or whatever myself. Ichigo looked determined. And you're going to help me. And why would I lend my power to this foolish endeavor? If we're stuck together, then if I die you die. And I'm sure that you don't want that, the boy smirked. While that may be true, I won't help unless it is a life and death situation ... and I pray it doesn't come to that. The voice sighed. Ichigo. Chad shook his friend. What? Oh, sorry guys, I was thinking about something. What's was with you today? Tatsuki cut right to the point. What are you talking about? Ichigo tried to play dumb. You can't trick us, Ichigo. Rukia frowned with her hand on her hips. You weren't being your typical annoying, hyper, belligerent self during the spars. You had to be snapped out of a daze after each one. I just have a lot on my mind. Does it have something to do with Sora? Tatsuki asked, getting into the boy's face. I saw the way you looked at him. No, it's just, you can tell us Kurosaki-kun ... we're supposed to be a team. Orihime had tears welling in her eyes because he refused to share his plight with them. The boy was taken aback by that. He felt like an idiot for thinking he could keep something like this a secret from his friends for long. Even if he wanted to. They knew him just as well as his family. If you're planning on doing something stupid, we want to be right there with you. Tatsuki crossed her arms with Chad and Rukia both giving resolute nods. The Kurosaki felt touched by his friend's willingness to help him with a problem that they knew nothing about, all for his sake. He looked behind them to see Sora still patiently waiting for the kids and behind himself and saw his family having their own conversation. Okay, I'll tell you what's been happening. Ichigo leaned in close to whisper to his friends. I snuck out last night and saw the monster that Aizen was looking for. Sounds like something you would do. Rukia sighed collectively with the others. Shut up, he hissed. The thing is, Ichigo paused and looked to Orihime, debating whether the girl would be able to take the information that her brother had. Become a monster. Then and there he decided against telling her of Sora's fate, at least until he could figure out whether the person with her was the real Sora or an imposter. I was out there because I'd heard someone scream. I went to go help, and I saw Aizen and those two guys there. They purposely set the monster loose so they could perform some experiment, and it worked. The guy that got attacked turned into one of them, Ichigo revealed to his friends. What? They all asked in shock. But why would they do something like that? Orihime looked confused. I don't know why, but it doesn't matter, Ichigo scoffed. All I care about is stopping whatever he has planned ... so I'm going to hunt that thing down and use it as proof that he's up to something. You're always trying to do something stupid, Ichigo. Tatsuki spoke up angrily. How do you expect to catch something like that? I don't know, but I have to do something or else everyone on the island will be in danger. Sigh, a crybaby like you. Tatsuki sighed and exaggeratedly lowered her head. Now I'm glad we decided to speak up. Rukia crossed her arms with a superior smirk on her face. You'd be totally lost without us. I'll help out too. Orihime puffed her cheeks up in determination. And Chad gave a cheesy smirk and a thumbs up, making the stoic boy seem completely out of place. We could get in trouble for this, Ichigo pointed out, knowing his father would most likely be furious for his little excursion going against Isshin's wishes. Like I said, we want to be right there with you, Ichigo. We're a team, and the leader's got to be there for her teammates. Tatsuki nudged the orange-haired boy. Yeah, you're right, Ichigo smirked. We can sneak out tonight, and make sure no one follows you. Ichigo held up a finger to his mouth in a shushing motion. With their plans made, the children all finally got to say their goodbyes and went their separate ways, knowing they'd be meeting in a few hours. Unfortunately, they had no way of knowing just what would be awaiting them at the end of the night. Orihime let out a small cough as she was escorted home. Caw-caw. Orihime sounded a bird call to signal her friends to her approach and got rapped on the head by Tatsuki. Remember that we're supposed to be sneaking around. We can't be making noise, Tatsuki admonished the girl. Hoot. Chad gave a deep hoot in response as he appeared, straight-faced as usual. Secret. A secret meeting. Tatsuki growled. Squeak. That one isn't even a bird. Tatsuki raised her voice. It's supposed to be a rabbit, Rukia smiled. I was practicing. Pretty good, huh? Rabbits don't squeak. Ichigo's sweat dropped. Well, we're all here. What's the plan, Ichigo? Where do we find this thing? Tatsuki turned to the boy. Well, this is where it happened in the first place. I thought starting here and moving outward would be the best idea. Ichigo explained to them as they huddled together. What does it look like? Rukia asked. It's got a mask for a face and a black body with no legs, like a snake, Ichigo described the beast. Can something like that exist? Orihime asked, worried, giving another cough. Technically no, Ichigo said that the Vice Admiral made them, so they shouldn't, Chad told the girl. All we have to do is find it. Ichigo pulled a pack from his back and handed out rope. If any one of us finds it, we should call the others, and then we can all gang up on it and tie it up, he said. How long are we going to be at this? Orihime asked. We can't stay out all night or our parents will get worried in the morning, Tatsuki pointed out. We should have about 3 hours before we have to worry about the sun coming up, so we should start heading home in 2.5 hours. You actually thought this through, I'm impressed, Tatsuki laughed. Just be careful, guys. This thing has brought down islands, so we have to be cautious. Ichigo ignored the jab. Alright, the creature capture squad is ready to roll. Orihime placed her hand in the middle of the huddle expectantly, jittering excitedly as she shifted her eyes to her friends repeatedly. Fine. Sure. Ichigo placed his hand on top of hers, followed by the rest before they all raised them into the air, and moving along with their mission. The group searched high and low, never straying too far from their neighborhood as they searched for the beast. In parks, the empty streets, mom and pop shops, and even homes that had left their blinds open. They climbed trees and buildings for higher vantage points and kept their ears trained on any monstrous or out-of-the-ordinary sound in the dead of night. After 2.5 hours, nothing. Yawn. Absolutely nothing. Rukia rubbed her eyes as everyone met back up where they started. Maybe it hibernates, Orihime offered. I don't think those guys would have such a finicky monster. Tatsuki's head bobbed, forcing herself to stay awake. This doesn't make any sense. He planned to wipe the island out, so I thought we'd be able to find the thing no problem. Ichigo thought to himself. Ichigo, the voice exclaimed suddenly as footsteps were heard coming toward the children. Hey there, kids. What are you doing out so late? Jin appeared with his wicked grin still present on his face. Don't you know that dangerous monster is on the loose? A deadly pressure suddenly washed over them as Jin opened his eyes ever so slightly, showing his blue eyes that held no comfort for the children. Why don't you let all Jin take you home? Where's that monster at then? Ichigo asked bravely, standing ahead of the others. We haven't seen it all this time. So what did you three do with it? Oh, would you be accusing me of something? Jin mocked. Enough playing, Jin. They know too much already, not that it will matter for much longer. Tozen appeared next behind the children. It finally began to sink in just how much danger they were really in, even more so than if they had just run into the beast. Surrounded by adults, marines, on both sides with no hope of escape and completely at their mercy. It was then that another pair of footsteps came up beside Jin, revealing Vice Admiral Aizen Sasuke himself. His gentle smile on his face despite the dire situation, knowing how everything would play out in his favor. Hello children, he said, simply addressing them as nothing but what they were to him. Children, it's him. Even the brave Tatsuki took a step back in fear. Answer me, Aizen. Where's the monster? Ichigo had enough of the games. Monster? Are you sure you want to address Sora-san in such a way? Aizen looked to Ichigo with half-lidded eyes. What? Orihime felt a pit open up in her stomach, coughing more as her emotions ran high. You didn't deign to tell your friends specifically who had been attacked the other night. Ichigo-kun. Ichigo grit his teeth as the eyes of his friends fell on him. Sora was the one that got attacked, he said difficultly. Then who was that today? Rukia gulped. Simply an illusion I created, Aizen explained. No need for any specifics. Put plainly, you and everyone around you saw Sora when in reality it was a body double that I had acting as him perfectly. Then Nii-chan. Orihime didn't dare say it. He is dead. Nothing more than a mindless beast, as Ichigo-kun said. Aizen smiled when the girl fell to her knees in a coughing fit with tears running down her face. Orihime. Tatsuki ran to her side in an instant. Why, Aizen. What did any of us do to deserve this? Ichigo swept his arm out to his friends, but it extended to every victim that met this fate. A god needs an army, Aizen answered. You're trying to play at God, Ichigo roared, taking a step forward. But Chad stopped him before he could go too far. No, not playing, the Vice Admiral answered. I fully intend on it. But I need numbers, soldiers willing to fight. The man looked to the night sky. These mindless beasts aren't worth anything. Perhaps it's because I need better subjects. Aizen looked Ichigo in the eye at that. Aizem. Ichigo brushed Chad off him and rushed at the marine, intent on striking him with all his strength. Ichigo, stop. The voice called too late. Ichigo was caught by the man, his fist inches from Aizen's face. Bringing the boy up to meet his eyes, Aizen grabbed Ichigo's face and spoke. Thank you, Ichigo-kun, for acting just as I expected you to. What? He mumbled out through the squishing of his cheeks. Acting brash and hot-headed, ready to take me on if it meant protecting all those precious to you. But it all amounted to nothing. Aizen turned the boy's head back to his friends. Orihime was still sobbing and coughing. Tatsuki was trying to comfort her. Chad stood at the ready, though for what? He wasn't completely sure. And Rukia kept her eyes on Tozen. Your choices have only made the destruction of this island hasten. Aizen kept the struggling boy watching. You observed the process for yourself. Did you not hear me? Did you not see what happens to those in a panic state after being attacked by my hollows? Ichigo just glared at the man from the corner of his eye, struggling to pry Aizen's hand from his face. And you foolishly brought the sister of said monster to this little gathering. What are you talking about? Did you do something to Orihime? Tatsuki shouted. No. Her brother did. Aizen chuckled. I want soldiers that have nothing but power, no memories, no morals. Hollows are what I would call mangled corpses that move, scurrying and devouring in a vain attempt to reclaim what was lost to them. And one way of doing that is going after loved ones first. At that, a familiar white liquid burst from Orihime's face, shocking those that hadn't seen it before but filled Ichigo with anger and dread all at the same time. He knew what was coming, and it was happening to one of his friends. Damn it, Orihime. A funny thing, without intense emotion the progression of my virus can be rather slow. It's normally nothing more than a trifle, seeing as most feel that intense fear being attacked by a hollow. But since you had to snoop Ichigo-kun, I had to intervene and overwrite what Orihime-chan had seen the night prior. When her brother had bit into her. Aizen said without a hint of remorse. You bastard. Ichigo kept trying ever harder to escape the man's grasp and make him pay. You were the one that allowed her to come along, refraining from telling her the truth that led to her predicament. Her intense fear of me, the extreme sadness of knowing the truth. It sped up the process. You. Tatsuki stood up. Orihime face down next to her with the white muck bubbling in time with her breathing. Turn her back. Turn her back right now. There is no cure. That would be foolish on my part. There is only one way to be immune, and you kids wouldn't have access to such rare means, Aizen explained. Then what if they turn on you? Rukia looked over her shoulder at the man. Hollows are beasts. If they sense someone stronger than them, they are brought to heel. Aizen's smile grew slightly as the moon glinted off his glasses. Just like your friend in just a few minutes. You liar. Tatsuki ran at Aizen, jumping up to kick him in his smug face. Just as her leg was about to reach him, Tatsuki gasped in pain, blood coming from her mouth as her eyes widened and she flew backward. No one had seen anything happen. Nothing flew at Tatsuki, nothing knocked her from her charge. Yet somehow a hole had appeared where her neck met her collarbone. Behind Aizen, Jin had sheathed his blade. Tatsuki, Ichigo cried. The girl laid motionless on the ground, but it didn't stop the detestable white liquid from shooting from her face. It was all falling apart, and Ichigo couldn't do anything to stop it. By that point, Orihime's body had finally picked itself up. The white gunk has almost completely covered her face. Only one eye was still left uncovered. Her normal brown eyes had become pitch black with a crimson-red pupil until that was covered by the mask as well. Without a moment's hesitation, the monstrous Orihime attacked Chad from behind, sinking her teeth into his side. The gentle giant didn't have any time to react, falling to the ground in a heap, his blood spilling onto the ground and dripping from the former young girl's masked jaws. Roarg, she roared, standing over her friend's body. Orihime, stop. Rukia reached out to the girl, taking her eyes off Tozen, which was a major mistake. The dark-skinned man was upon her instantly and ran her through with his sword, sliding her body off it as if she were trash. Stop, Ichigo wailed, falling to his knees when Aizen let him go. You should feel ashamed. Ichigo-kun, look at what you have wrought because of your impatience, Aizen taunted the boy. Ichigo, Rukia struggled out one last time and she joined the other children as hollows, a final look of horror on her face when the liquid burst from her. No, Ichigo pounded the ground, tears flowing in fury and anguish. Man, kid. If you're this broken up, I'd hate to see your face when you get home, Jin offhandedly mentioned. The boy perked up at that, his eyes red as he turned to the silver-haired marine. What do you mean by that? What did you do to my family? The same thing that will happen to you, Tozen calmly told the enraged boy. Those that know of our secret needed to be dealt with first. Tozen turned his blind gaze on the distraught boy. Did you not find it odd that Sora-san was not what met you and your band out here this night? Aizen asked. A cold shiver ran through Ichigo when he heard that. His fingers dug into the ground as they formed fists. If you want to see, I'd suggest that you hurry along. I only led Sora-san to your home. I can't control his new nature, Aizen offered the boy. You stay away from them. Ichigo stood up. We're actually heading over now to make sure the job has been completed. Ichigo-kun, Aizen turned away from the boy and began walking in the direction of the Kurosaki clinic. You're more than welcome to come. That is if you make it through those friends of yours without succumbing yourself. Looking behind him, Ichigo saw that all his friends had become grotesque monsters just like Sora. Nothing in their eyes but an intense hunger that shook Ichigo to the core as they looked at him, or more appropriate, through him. Don't do this, Ichigo shouted to them, taking a step backward. Glancing behind himself, he saw Aizen and his followers' backs getting further away. Ichigo, move. The voice alerted the boy, making him dodge. The voice debated with itself before it made a decision. I don't like this, Ichigo ... but we don't have a choice ... you're going to have to draw me. Draw you? Ichigo asked. Yes, the culmination of your spirit and the embodiment of my power. The voice took a pause. But know this, once you draw me, I can't be returned. The only way I'll disappear is when you die. Fine then, Ichigo resolved, and with his permission given, a blue aura burst from Ichigo's chest, followed by the hilt of a sword. Plunging his hands to his chest, Ichigo drew an oversized katana from his chest that Ichigo slightly struggled to lift. Now I see. Aizen cast a look back to the boy and saw the spectacle. I wondered why he hadn't yet transformed despite his great anger. A lucky boy indeed, to have eaten a devil fruit. Aizen chuckled in amusement, never slowing his stride. How am I supposed to use this thing? I'm not a swordsman, you know, Ichigo shouted in his mind. And who's the one that wanted to come here in spite of my warnings? If you had taken this slowly, we could have had a few lessons. Ichigo could imagine the voice with a stern "I told you so" expression after that sentence. So, what am I supposed to do with it? Ichigo sweat as his friends stalked toward him. You'll have to strike them down. The voice didn't mince words. You can't be serious. I can't do that. They're my friends. Not anymore, the voice stated. They aren't human anymore. The best thing to do for them is put them out of their misery. The hollows lunged at the frozen boy, who managed to block them with his blade. But the strength behind it sent him flying back. He skidded to a stop, afraid for his life and that of his friends. I suppose it is too much too quickly to expect him to do something like this ... He's still only a child. The voice thought to itself. At the very least, you have to defend yourself, Ichigo, the voice conceded. You have to find an opening and flee back home, the voice compromised. Fine. Ichigo looked to his former friends and did his best. The boy defended himself from their animalistic attacks, taking a few nicks along the way while trying his best to keep the damage to a minimum. The destruction roused the populace of Karakura, and that caused the monsters to abandon their pursuit of Ichigo in favor of the weaker meals. Ichigo looked down as he sped through the streets, doing his best to ignore the screams he heard. He couldn't save them all ... He wasn't even sure if he could save anyone ... but he'd be damned if he didn't try. Looking behind him, Ichigo saw that he'd ran a fair distance farther than he'd anticipated, and he didn't feel fatigued at all from his evading. What's going on? You didn't think all you're in my power would be as a sword, did you? The voice chimed in. You aren't just a human anymore. You've only scratched the surface of your abilities ... but that can wait until this tragedy is over. Ichigo nodded, gulping when he'd arrived in front of his home. The Kurosaki clinic had a gaping hole on its upper level and its windows were shattered. Sora was here, maybe he still was. He had to find out if his family was okay. Dad, Ichigo burst in and gasped. Directly in front of him was his family. All of them laid out, and the putrid, disgusting white matter of hollow masks had already begun to spread on their faces. And at the end of the hallway were the three detestable Marines that had started all of this. You've arrived, Ichigo-kun, but as you can see ... you are too late. Shadows stretched across Aizen's face menacingly. Shame, they could have really used your help, kid. When we showed up, they didn't even care about the hollow ... they just wanted to know where you were. Jin put a hand to his cheek in mock concern. If you had gone with your father's plan ... you wouldn't have found yourself here, boy. There would have been casualties, of course, but lives could have been saved all the same. Tozen looked to the downed Kurosakis. Ichigo grit his teeth and readied his sword to fight, not caring if he'd die or not. No, Ichigo. Isshin grabbed his son's foot. You can't fight them ... you'll die. You have to run. Get out of here before we come after you. Isshin pleaded. No, don't talk like that. I have to save you. I'm sorry I didn't listen. Ichigo cried. Then listen to me now. You have to get out of here and live ... or else Karakura will disappear entirely. Isshin shouted. Aizen appeared in front of the duo with his sword drawn. Wise words, Kurosaki-san. If only your son had paid attention to you in the first place. Perhaps you are disappointed in naming him He Who Protects since he has failed so spectacularly. Aizen looked down at the two, raising his sword. Of course not, Isshin smiled, getting up and standing in front of his son. Everything he's done was to protect everyone on this island ... He did his best, but he's still just a kid. He'll grow up to be greater than either of us realize. Not a hint of doubt was in his voice. You dare talk back to Lord Aizen? Tozen growled at the pathetic man, taking a step forward. Stay away from Ikai. Yuzu grabbed the man's foot and Karin followed as she grabbed the other. Don't touch him. Impressive. You're all going to die. And you'd rather help the person that made it happen. Jin asked. Don't lie. Ikai Nyai would never hurt anyone. It's all your fault, Yuzu shouted. And even if he did do it, we're his family. We'd help him out of any trouble he's in. Karin yelled. Ichigo dropped to his knees and cried at his family's declaration. He couldn't hold it back any longer. They were defending him after all this, after his actions caused the widespread chaos that was happening on the island much more quickly than if he'd stayed put. A nice sentiment that you can take with you to your grave, Aizen coldly stated, his glasses gleaming as all three Kurosaki were cut down. Ichigo couldn't muster the strength to move as he saw his family hit the ground again, and the transformation process speeding up. He let out sobs as the tears flowed freely from his eyes and snot dripped from his nose, letting his sword fall to the ground. Goodbye, Kurosaki Ichigo. Aizen walked past the boy with his subordinates. Normally, all witnesses would be dealt with by the virus, but you are lucky enough to possess a devil fruit, the only thing that makes you immune. It should be considered a blessing, but now it is a curse. I won't kill you because there is no need. The people you worked so hard to save will do the job for me. Unless you survive. Aizen stopped at the door and looked to the crying boy. The odds are stacked against you, but I meant what I said when I told you. You have potential ... so live and show me that I wasn't wrong. With that, Aizen, Jin, and Tozen all took their leave, the hollows of the island all keeping their distance as they hunted the stragglers down. The destruction didn't faze them in the slightest, walking calmly through the wreckage and rubble. Ichigo's cries could be heard even from where they were. The boy lifting his head and looking to the heavens as he bawled his eyes out powerfully. His friends, his family, his island, they were all gone. And he was the only one left. Ichigo, you have to pull yourself together. The boy shook in place, crying. TCH. The voice saw through the boy's eyes that his family's transformation was almost complete, and if Ichigo was here to witness it, there would be no chance of survival. Ichigo, I know that everything seems bad right now. The voice began. I know that you probably just want to lay down and die. The click of the voice's teeth were heard. But if you do, then who is going to avenge them? Ichigo twitched a bit when he'd heard that. You have to survive. So, you can save everyone from this existence. So you can prove Aizen wrong ... so you can avenge their deaths. Ichigo wobbled, forcing himself to move. You can't do any of that if you die here. Still crying. The boy placed his hand around his sword's handle and made his way out of his home, not bringing himself to look back at what had become of his family. He saw the wasted town, devoid of life and completely taken by the hollows, yet pressed on while wiping his face. We wasted all that time allowing you to hunt this monster, yet it all amounted to nothing. A voice that was not pleased spoke on a den mushi. It's unfortunate, but that is the truth, sir. We weren't able to stop the spread of its disease ... so Karakura will also have to be closed off to the populace as well. Aizen spoke. 3 islands, Aizen. You said you could handle it and cure those afflicted, yet you see no results ... You will have to be punished for failing to save those lives. A vice admiral should have pride and urgency. I will accept any punishment. We are turning for headquarters now. Aizen kept a level head. Very well. Check. How dare he speak to you like that? Tozen growled. It's fine. The fleet admiral trusted me and I failed his expectations ... but I'll be able to get out of punishment. You always did have a magic touch when it came to Sengoku ... and I didn't think he played favorites. Jin smiled. There's nothing magic about it. Aizen gave a genuine smile, not giving away anything. Always so enigmatic. So, Jin looked back to the dead island ... Why leave the kid alive? That's pretty cruel, even for you. Better to kill him and put him out of his misery. Trapped on an island where everyone you've ever known is trying to kill ya. Aizen just stared out at the sea before he answered. He reminds me of someone ... that found themselves in a similar situation and managed to come out of it stronger ... It would be a waste if he died without seeing where he could end up. You mean you weren't just taunting when you told him he had potential? Jin rose a brow and lost his smile. Aizen turned with his own smirk. No, I wasn't. The sun had finally made its way into the sky. The silence in the town meant that Aizen had told the truth when saying hollows were nocturnal unless provoked. Ichigo leaned against a wall, cleaning his face with his knees hugged to his chest and his sword leaning by his side. The deathly quiet of his home unnerved him. No bustling marketplace, no pedestrians, no more dojo. You can relax for now ... but we'll have to find shelter before too long and stock up on provisions. The voice spoke up. Why, you said that I have more power, right? Ichigo asked. After a moment of silence, the voice answered, yes. Then teach me how to use it. I won't be pulling any punches. Fine by me. I need to get stronger. Strong enough to beat all these hollows and give everyone peace. Strong enough to beat Aizen. Ichigo took in a deep breath and shouted at the top of his lungs. Strong enough so I can protect everyone. Then I'll teach you. Until you learn my name, call me Sensei. In flashback, after 10 long years, Ichigo was almost finished with his mission. Looking back, there were times he'd almost died to hollows that he wasn't ready for. Times where he was weak from hunger because he couldn't travel to certain sections of Karakura without running into more hollows than he could count. Times he had to rest and recover from injuries, hiding from the hungry beasts. And there were good times as well, when he finally learned Zangetsu's name and unlocked his Shikai and the time he had finally cleared an entire sect of Karakura, allowing him to return home and shoddily rebuild it. When he found the Book of the Populace so he could start marking the names down, and see how close he was to being finished. Learning just what he'd eaten from the library. He'd had many ups and downs in the past decade, and now it was all culminating to this final bout with these final hollows of his family. The only thing that stood between him and leaving the island to hunt his greater prey. Is you. Ichigo pointed Zangetsu at the hollow across from him. It was ready to be free. A cold wind blew through the quiet Karakura town, but it wasn't because of the temperature. The chilled feeling was coming from the two powerful individuals that were staring each other down. A cold, hard look coming from Ichigo as he steeled himself mentally for the battle ahead of him, knowing that this was an inevitable fight to free himself and move on to his greater foe. Ichigo had Zangetsu pointing at the hollow, ready for anything it had in store. The hollow looked like a giant hamster, for it had a round body with brown fur covering it, held up by 4 limbs that had red claws. It was a larger hollow than normal, and its mask helped add to that feeling. The hamster-like hollow had a wide mask with an equally wide mouth with its teeth showing and pink lips. It had red eyes with 6 pupils, 3 in each eye, and teardrop marks lining its face that led to the nostrils. It drooled while watching Ichigo, not making any sudden moves but seemed to be restraining itself from doing so in the first place. Above the two, Naruto hopped onto a roof and sat over the edge, watching to see what would happen between the two and planned to jump in and help if Ichigo needed it. He was sure the orange head would be upset if he knew the blonde had come, but that didn't really matter to Naruto. If Ichigo needed his help, he'd be there whether he wanted it or not. Ichigo gripped his sword tighter and sighed. I know you won't understand me, none of you ever do, but I try anyway. Ichigo started, bringing his head up with a hard face but soft eyes. Make this easier on me. And let me finish this. I don't want this to drag out. Ichigo's words fell on deaf ears as the hollow screeched at him, clearly not understanding what was said, and bum rushed the teen. Its maw opened with a sickening crack as it seemed to unhinge its jaw to swallow Ichigo whole as it roared, flinging spittle all around. Ichigo's hair shadowed his eyes as the monster closed in on him, and he grit his teeth in frustration. Looking back up, Ichigo brought his other hand up to Zangetsu's handle and held it in front of him. Always the same, Ichigo mumbled with a scowl, hardening his eyes. Even if you don't know it, this is for your own good. The hamster hollow jumped into the air and landed where Ichigo was standing, only for the swordsman to disappear from its view as it bit into the ground where Ichigo once stood. The teen had used his superior speed to appear above the hollow and positioned his sword behind him as he fell, looking to slice into the mask from behind as he'd done so many times before over the years. Coming down on the creature, Ichigo swung his blade with all his might but rose his brow in slight shock when the hair covering the beast rose to meet his blade, and the two collided in an audible clang. That's some tough hair, Ichigo thought, watching the strands wrap around his blade to hold him in place as the hollow turned to sink its claws into him. Thinking quickly, Ichigo brought his feet onto the back of the monster for a foothold and maneuvered himself out of its reach. Pulling his sword free from the powerful fur, Ichigo was slammed into the ground by it soon after when it wrapped around his legs. Despite the pain, Ichigo ignored it and got back onto his feet after a painful bounce off the hard ground. With little time to shake off the pain, Ichigo brought Zangetsu's edge up to defend himself from the claws of the hollow, catching the creature by the palm with it as the fingers came close to reaching the teen. You probably think that you've gotten me, Ichigo smirked while looking at the creature's left eye. Suddenly, the creature's claws extended abruptly, attempting to pierce Ichigo's torso, but the astute eye of the teen was able to escape the deadlock with the hollow and escaped its field of vision. Ching! It was with that quick movement that Ichigo cut off the offending limb, leaving a stump of fur that staunched the bleeding while the monster screeched out in pain. Ichigo had turned his back to the beast, crouched low from his slice as the claw landed a fair distance away from the two of them, and his head hung low. I've been fighting you for the past 10 years. I know the best way is to take out you monsters, whether or not you get a few lucky shots in. Ichigo turned back around and hefted Zangetsu onto his shoulder. I ask all of you to stand down out of respect for who you used to be and because it would make the process so much easier than having a minute-long fight. Ichigo smiled. So cool. Naruto gushed from above while swinging his legs excitedly. Guess he won't need my help after all. Naruto smirked, watching the bout with increasing excitement. It's all over now. Ichigo stalked toward the hollow with his eyes shadowed. The pitiable beast walked backward in slight fear of the swordsman, looking like a cornered animal. And just like a cornered animal, it became more dangerous when left with only desperate actions to save its life. The hollow roared as it sent out its fur again in long tendrils to run through the swordsman, only for Ichigo to duck and weave through them with ease. Ichigo brought his sword to his side to cut through the mask and most likely through its entire body. This is the end. Ichigo roared in determination. Ikigu. A voice came from the hollow that froze the boy's charge for a second before he shook it off his imagination. What the hell ... that sounded like. Ichigo noticed that the monster's fur was shifting again and expected another salvo of its hardened, sharpened fur to come barreling at him ... but he was wrong. A figure emerged from underneath the fur that was familiar to the orange-headed spirit human. The dark hair, the stubble ... it was Isshin Kurosaki, only his eyes were a dark void and his skin was pale. Ichigo's father had emerged from the hollow's fur and looked toward his son with a blank expression. Who's that? Naruto noticed the man come from the hollow's back but had no idea who it was ... but Ichigo did, since he'd stopped in his track when he got a good look at his face. Naruto put a hand up to his ear but couldn't hear what was being said. It can't be ... Dad. Ichigo shook in fear and surprise to the point that he had forgotten about the attack that was still coming his way, leading to him getting stabbed by the fur tendrils and pushed a good distance away from the hollow. Whoa, what happened? I thought hollows weren't supposed to be human anymore. Naruto stood up in shock and looked to the dust cloud where Ichigo was to see if he was alright. The blonde was just able to make out Ichigo's form in the cloud, with Senjutsu keeping him up as he kneeled on the ground with a hand to one of his stab wounds. So, this is Dad's hollow then? Ichigo huffed, his blood splattering on the ground in droplets from his wounds. 10 years ... and none of them have ever regained a human form ... even for a second. Maybe it's its special ability, Ichigo thought, bringing himself to stand again. My fault for being careless, Ichigo growled, reprimanding himself. These things never give up, even when they get an arm cut off. Just gotta get it from behind. Ichigo ran back into the fray. Isshin's body twitched when he and the hollow saw Ichigo running toward them again and shouted in tandem with the hollow's roar. Ichigo. So, he does know Ichigo, Naruto reasoned from above. The blonde looked to his friend and could see him biting his lip as he ran at the monster. He wanted to help, but he knew that if he just barged in, Ichigo would just get mad at him, not to mention that it was his fight to begin with. A duel, and Naruto wouldn't encroach on a duel unless Ichigo looked like he would die. Just gotta ignore it ... he has no idea what he's saying. Ichigo growled, then disappeared from the hollow's view, making it miss its attack. The orange-haired strawberry appeared behind the monster once more with one hand at the bottom of Zenjutsu's hilt for added force in the stab he was about to unleash. There. Ikai niai ... it hurts. It hurts so much ... so ... why do you want to hurt me more? Yuzu now appeared from the hollow's back directly in front of Zenjutsu, forcing the shocked Ichigo to divert his stab from his baby sister. This momentary lapse allowed the hollow to quickly turn and jab its claws into Ichigo, making him cough up more blood before he was slammed into the ground, digging the claws even deeper into himself. Ugh! Ichigo screamed in pain, watching as the hollow loomed over him, and Yuzu shifted to the front of the hollow as well on the opposite side of the mask as her father, the same blank void as Isshin staring back. What's going on? Ichigo grabbed the monster's limb and struggled to pull the claws from his body, wincing in pain and shutting one eye all the while. No hollows ever had two people in it. Ichigo ground out, finally managing to free himself from underneath the hollow and took a swing with Senjutsu, making sure to only aim for the mask. 3. Another voice came as Karin emerged from the top of the hollow to complete the Kurosaki family reunion. No. Ichigo trembled slightly as he gazed at his family, forcefully melded into the same monster. He had steeled himself these years, knowing that he would inevitably come across them ... but he never expected to see their faces again while doing it, let alone all at once. 3 in 1. Naruto began to lean in when he saw the 3 people coming out of the hollow. You're just using them. They have no idea what they're saying. Ichigo growled in anger. Ichigo hoisted Zenjutsu in front of him, ignoring the blood coming out of his mouth. I'll take care of this, and then you won't disrespect my family anymore. Ichigo huffed in slight exhaustion thanks to his wounds, anger, and running around to attack the monster. I'll save you. Save us. Karin's voice called out, looking at Ichigo. It's your fault we're like this, Ichigo. The teen widened his eyes when hearing the cognizant and hurtful words that he'd always believed deep down in his subconscious ... and finally having those insecurities be voiced by the people he'd held most dear stung deeper than any wound that he'd suffered in this fight. I never meant for that to happen. He looked away. If you'd just listened to me ... it wouldn't have. Isshin spoke in a voice that had the tiniest hint of emotion in it. I'm trying to fix my mistake, Ichigo argued. I know that I messed up, but I've spent the last 10 years cleansing the island and putting everyone to rest ... and then I can go after Aizen. Ichigo at this point was desperately trying to reason with whatever remnants of his family were left. Fix your mistake. Yuzu had teardrops flowing from her eyes, the black void of her eyes juxtaposed against the sorrowful emotion that her unemotional face could not convey. Isn't killing us the exact opposite of fixing it? Yuzu tilted her head in an unnerving manner when she said that. What? Ichigo sweat. Aren't you just sweeping your mistake under the rug? Karin spoke up with her deadpan face. Cleansing us, putting us out of our misery. Isshin chimed in with a twisted smile. You're just erasing your failure. No one would know and you can just forget all about it. No, that isn't true. Are you sure, Ikai? Would you kill us? Again, Yuzu said with her tears starting anew. It's better than what you are now ... Just look at you. I'm trying to put you to rest. Yuzu-chan ... You said it hurt, Ichigo reasoned. It does, but dying would hurt all the more. Knowing that me and Karin-chan and Dad have to be this monster because of you and then you try and save us by ending our lives ... Yet you'll get to live on. Yuzu cried harder at that thought. Tell me, Ikai ... How is that fair? Yuzu, you want to make up for your mistake ... by killing us, just to make yourself feel better about your failure. We didn't have a choice ... You brought this on us. Yuzu's body moved unnaturally as she spoke. And then you have the gall to end us while you continue living. Ichigo at this point bowed to the ground, leaving himself completely vulnerable to the hollow, tears falling to the ground. I didn't want this to happen. I thought I was fixing everything. Please. I'm sorry. The three pseudo-humans grinned sadistically at that, the hollow opening its mouth and allowing saliva to fall to its feet. The monster stalked to the prone teen slowly and with sinister purpose. You want our forgiveness, Ichigo? Isshin's face contorted in a sickening smile. There's one thing you can do, Ichigo. Karin shared his look of sadistic joy. You can die. Atone for sins by letting us end your life ... like you ended so many of ours that day. You dying for our survival is the ultimate show of your penance and willingness to be forgiven by us, Ikai. Yuzu shouted in glee. The main body of the hollow had jumped to the boy and made to devour him completely. Become our flesh and blood and fill our void, Ichigo. His family screamed together. I deserve this. After everything I've done, I couldn't protect anyone. I'm just getting what I deserve for killing everyone back then. Even my family couldn't keep loving me after being forced to become a monster. Ichigo gave a sad smile, his tears pattering against the ground. This is the best thing for me to do. Don't give me that crap. A voice shouted from in front of Ichigo, appearing in a powerful gust of wind. Wham! A heel came up and forced the hollow's mouth closed and pushed it back to its starting point. Naruto's face was filled with fury and his eyes were burning with rage as he stared down the monster. Naruto, what are you doing here? Ichigo grunted in pain. I followed you out here. I told you that I'd help you hunt down these things. Naruto answered, only slightly turning his head back but never taking his eyes off the hollow. Who? Isshin growled. No one else should be on this island ... An outsider. Yuzu scowled. This has nothing to do with you. That boy owes us for what he's done. We'll deal with you later. Karin growled, rubbing her chin as if she was the one attacked. No, I think you'll deal with me now. Naruto narrowed his eyes. What are you doing? I told you I can handle this ... You don't even know what's going on. Ichigo tried to stand back up to stop the blonde. You're right. Naruto's answer stopped Ichigo from reaching out to the blonde's shoulder. I have no idea what you or anyone on this island has been through. I have no business butting into what you're doing here. But I have a pretty good idea of who these people are ... or were. Naruto regarded Ichigo with a side glance using his right eye. You said you were almost done ... and I take it these guys are your family, right? Ichigo looked away at that. I thought so. That's why you can't bring yourself to cut them and you're letting them talk to you like that. Naruto turned back and walked forward slightly. What are you doing? Get back. I have to do it. Just look at you. You are about to throw away 10 years of work because you couldn't do it. Naruto shouted back. This is why you can't do everything by yourself. What? It doesn't matter how strong you are. Everyone needs help. If it wasn't for you telling me how to beat that first hollow, I could have gotten seriously hurt or even died ... and you healed me up. And without me, you would have died right here because of your family. Because no sane person would be able to harm their family no matter what form they take. Naruto fully turned around to Ichigo and looked him dead in the eye. There are plenty of things in the world that people can and can't do on their own. Naruto grabbed Ichigo's collar at that. That's why we cover up for each other's weaknesses. That's what makes us friends. That's what makes us a team. That's what makes us a crew. Naruto let Ichigo fall back to the ground after letting go of the teen. Now just sit back and watch. I'll do what you couldn't and beat this hollow. Besides, I have a bone to pick with it now. Naruto cracked his knuckles. Ichigo has to repent. The only way for him to end our suffering is to die. I told you not to give me that crap. Naruto scowled. You're his family. I don't care what happened to you. If you're able to talk to him ... you should be praising him for giving up so much of his life just to see to it that you can rest easy after what happened. Naruto's voice seemed to make the family in Hollow tremble in fear. Instead, you're telling him to die to be forgiven. I'm not taking the ... you're back even if you're like that. There's no way that's how you actually feel ... you need to tell him that he's been doing the right thing ... or else your deaths are always going to weigh on him. The Hollow growled and rushed at the pirate and brought its teeth down. But the top and bottom jaw were pried open by the blonde's hands. The palms bled slightly from the force behind them, but they could not close on him. Every second you use your time to bring him down is torture. Don't you get that? Naruto pushed back against the Hollow but stared into the eyes of the silent Kurosaki family. Ichigo. They shifted around Naruto to attack the teen behind him only to be forced to follow the Hollow's body when it was sent flying back. Don't mess with him. I'm fighting you. Naruto ran to the main body with wind swirling around his fist. He slammed his fist into the mask of the Hollow and had the wind explode with incredible force that made the Hollow dig its remaining claws to keep itself from flying too far back. As a response, the Hollow sent its fur tendrils toward the blonde, who in turn dodged them with his superior speed and jumped into the air. The tendrils redirected to the airborne blonde, making him maneuver through the openings between them all. He began to spin through the air, gathering speed. Kazaha Ashi. Naruto brought his heel down on the beast's mask, creating a fissure that ran from the forehead down to its chin. My mask. 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 The monster panicked, making its attached bodies hold its face together. They even began to seal the fissure with a familiar white fluid from their mouths. Damn, guess it's gotta be a one-hit kill. A slice powerful enough to cut clean through. Naruto mumbled, still in midair from his heel drop. Unknown to him, one of the fur tendrils had snuck behind him and wrapped around his leg. With its grip, the Hollow slammed Naruto into the ground hard enough that he bounced back up and was caught by the hands of the Kurosaki family. All their eyes glowed sinisterly as they held the blonde pirate. In the way, I'll devour you first. They grinned as they led the struggling blonde to the creature's mouth. You think you can hold me? Naruto attempted to shred their hands to make them let go, but they didn't seem to care as their blood flowed freely. Damn it, I ain't dying here. I'll tear you up from the inside. Naruto defiantly shouted. Zenjutsu ... is this what you meant? Back when you disappeared. Ichigo thought, still kneeling where Naruto left him as he watched the blonde inch closer to the Hollow's mouth. Finally got the house back. Ichigo smirked as a Hollow disappeared behind him. The young teen had finally managed to take back his neighborhood from the Hollows. No more sleeping in run-down buildings with one eye open. Good job, Ichigo ... With this there is nothing left to teach, Zenjutsu told the boy as he drew Ichigo into his inner world of sideways buildings. Thanks, Zenjutsu. Without you none of this would have been possible. Ichigo smiled but looked back up once he'd gone over what his sword had told him. What do you mean, nothing left to teach? Exactly what I said. Zenjutsu turned around and looked to the horizon. In terms of physical strength and fighting prowess, I have given you all the knowledge that I possess, Zenjutsu told the boy calmly. Do not fret, I will still be with you ... but I see no reason to hinder your mind unless absolutely necessary. Ichigo, you are not a child anymore ... and your power can still grow. Zenjutsu eased the boy's unspoken worries. If I can still grow, then why are you saying that there's nothing left to teach? Even after all these years with you, you're still cryptic as hell. Ichigo frowned comically. Remember that I only came into existence because of the devil fruit, so therefore my knowledge is limited. I am not human ... and even the bare minimum that I know from existing as your power is finite until you can handle it all. There is still more that I can't give you, meaning my time as your teacher is done. So, what, I just finish off all these Hollows and go after Aizen, then? Ichigo asked with a raised brow. Zenjutsu stayed silent. If that's what it takes to get stronger, then you know I'll do it. By the time I cleanse everyone, I know that I'll be strong enough to take him on ... and then everyone can truly rest. Ichigo looked at his palm and made a fist in determination. No ... even if you amassed all the power you could have by defeating all the Hollows and even beyond that. Zenjutsu turned to look Ichigo in the eye. You still couldn't touch Aizen. Ichigo's eyes shrank when he heard that. What? His hands balled in anger and his brows furrowed. What the hell do you mean by that, Zenjutsu? If I'm not strong enough to fight Aizen... then what was all this time spent for? All the training, all the fighting, all the pain. Ichigo began to tear up from his anger and weakness. How can Aizen be that much stronger than me? Zenjutsu sighed and turned back to the horizon. Because he has something that you do not. Something that you have lost and have not regained since the unfortunate event 6 years ago. And that is essential to winning against a man like him. What are you talking about? What does that monster have that I don't? Experience, power, knowledge. I'll do anything to get it. If I simply told you what you're lacking, then you'd never learn of the true value of it. All I can say is that all those who you've lost over the years... they've had it... And that's why they could act in those dire moments despite their fear... You just have to rediscover it. With his piece said, Zenjutsu slowly faded from Ichigo's sight and left the confused boy to ponder the blade's words for the next 4 years. Shit, I'm not going out like this. Naruto was seconds away from cloaking his body in wind to shred the insides of the hollow when a blur appeared between the two of them. A flash of light later and the arms of the Kurosaki family were severed from their elbow down. Blood shooting from the wound as Ichigo held Zenjutsu over his shoulder, crouched down low to the ground, and his back to the hollow while looking Naruto in his eyes. All this time and I haven't changed at all, Ichigo said, more to himself than to Naruto. I'm still the same crybaby that can talk a big game but has to end up being saved by the people I swore to protect because I freeze... My mom, my friends, and my family have died because of me. Ichigo. The family roared in anger, losing all semblance of their humanity as they roared in anger at their foes for harming them. I thought that I had to get stronger... That way no one would have to risk their lives to save me again... And I pushed myself into being detached from everyone so they wouldn't ever die for me again. Ichigo stood back up and turned to the hollow that was using his family as a shield. Ichigo smirked as he looked at the monster. And I'll be damned if I let a monster like you... that has to hide behind my family's corpses to keep itself alive. Kill my captain. Naruto shot back up when he heard that last part. Whoa, you're gonna join my crew after all. Naruto grinned dumbly. I knew I liked you for a reason. Yeah, don't get a swelled head about it. If I didn't go and join, you'd have killed yourself trying to get me to. Besides, Ichigo stood side by side with Naruto. Can't join up until all the hollows are gone, right? Naruto stood in a fighting stance next to Ichigo with a smile. Well, with the two of us, I'm sure we can get out of here by morning, Naruto said confidently. The hollow finally grew tired of being ignored and shifted all its fur to the front of its body, forming a writhing mass of hair that began coiling for a spring launch. And while the beast was preparing itself, the two teens were unconcerned. The mask may be vulnerable because of how big it is, but your family just heals whatever damage we'll give it, Naruto informed Ichigo. Then we just have to slice clean through, huh? Ichigo looked to the ball of fur. Yeah, you got it, Naruto snickered. What's so funny? It's just nice that we're on the same wavelength already. Coming from you, I don't know if I can take that as a compliment. At that point, the hollow unleashed its wave of hardened fur at the two, attempting to skewer them with the sharp ends. Its mouth had opened the widest it could possibly go as it roared loud enough to shatter any remaining windows of the abandoned buildings. Oh, here it comes. Naruto noticed the attack with a neutral expression. Naruto looked to his future Nakama with a questioning gaze. You have this in you. Yeah, I cut off their arms, didn't I? Ichigo shot back with a serious look in his eyes. Plus, it's not like I could tell I'm attacking them right now anyway, so I'll be fine. If you say so. You've got a long-range attack, Naruto asked, gathering wind. Yeah, then do it with mine, Naruto grinned. He had his palms facing each other, condensing wind into a tiny shape as he molded it. Ichigo brought Zenjutsu over his head and gathered a blue energy that flowed up to the blade's edge, lighting up the night. With an unspoken signal, the two let their attacks loose. Kamitachi no Getsuga Tensho, Ichigo released a large blue crescent of energy that scraped across the ground, kicking up dirt as it went. Naruto, meanwhile, released the tiny ball of air he'd compressed into the shape of a weasel. The wind creature ran toward the traveling wave of energy and absorbed the moon fang into itself, giving it a blue shine as it sped up to such an insane degree that it blurred out of sight. The only way to track the tiny wind weasel's movements was the blue trail of energy that followed behind where it had once been. Once the two attacks were about to collide, that was when the weasel jumped to meet the massive fur blades, transferring the Getsuga's energy into its tail, and making it resemble a scythe. The weasel then began to rapidly spin in the air, resembling a buzzsaw as tore through the fur with ease, aiming straight for the beast behind them all. By the time the hollow had realized that its attack had been neutralized, its eyes widened in shock. The wind weasel had already appeared behind the monster with a wet splattering and squelching being heard soon after, the hollow's vision dividing as its two halves split down the middle. Ikagu! The Kurosaki family screamed in their final moments as the hollow's unmoving corpse began to disappear, the wind weasel having faded before that. Ichigo frowned as he sat on the ground, his elbows on his knees and hands grasped in front of his face with his eyes closed. His mission finally over and his family put to rest, he let his conflicted emotions abate. Thank you. Did you hear that? Ichigo looked back up to see nothing remained of the hollow or his family. Yeah, guess my yelling got through after all, huh? Naruto smiled. Yeah, you're right. Ichigo then fell back to lay on the ground. Hey, Ichigo, you're not gonna die from blood loss, are you? You just joined my crew, you can't die yet. Naruto was instantly kneeling next to his injured crewmate. Calm down. I've been through way worse than this. Ichigo opened one of his eyes. I'm just drained. Never imagined fighting them would be that tough. Ichigo grumbled to himself with what he was about to say. Thanks, it's no problem. We're friends. No way I'd want you to die. Even if you didn't join ... and no one should have to deal with their problems all alone. Naruto waved it off and sat cross-legged next to his first crewman. Give me a day ... and we can set out. Ichigo looked to the sky. Take as long as you need. Never know when we'll come back, so you deserve to make your peace. Naruto hopped up and slung Ichigo's arm over his shoulder and headed back to the Kurosaki clinic. Karakura town, cleansed. Ichigo had just finished filling in the last holes of the makeshift graveyard he'd made in his backyard, finally giving all the residents of Karakura as close to a proper burial as could be and putting their souls to rest. Wow, you made this for everyone? Naruto asked slightly behind his crewmate. Had to, Ichigo said with a sorrowful expression on his face, sitting cross-legged in the dirt and staring out at the rows and rows of headstones he'd made. Someone that knows them should be the one to honor them. No one else in the world even knew that they existed. This was just a dot on the map to the outside world, and it was erased as soon as the world government declared it unsafe. I know they were here ... and if they're anything like you I'm sure we'd have gotten along. Naruto crossed his arms with an understanding smile. I'm gonna leave you alone for a bit ... and no reason for me to stick around for your moment. Naruto jabbed his thumb back to the house. You sure it's alright to grab some clothes and Billy? Yeah, not like anyone else is going to be using them. Ichigo didn't turn back to answer. Okay, just one thing before I go. Naruto hooked his arm around Ichigo's shoulder to the orange head's discomfort. You all don't have to worry about this guy anymore. Naruto pointed his thumb at himself. I'll be taking care of him from now on. You? Ichigo looked to the blonde with a raised brow. Of course, that's the captain's job, Naruto smiled. And you watch my back, cause you're my first mate. Ichigo was speechless and before he could come up with a response Naruto had already made his way back to the house. Can't wait to get some new clothes. Ichigo sat still, staring at the house as the blonde disappeared and shook his head with a smile, and turning back to the graves. Sighing to himself, Ichigo looked to his family's graves and addressed them. I finally did it ... all of you are at rest. I'm sorry that all of this happened, but I'm not going to blame myself for any of it anymore. No one else is at fault but Aizen, and he is going to pay. Ichigo scowled just remembering the vice admiral. You may be at rest, but none of us will be at peace until he pays the price, so I'm setting out to find him. Ichigo bowed to the ground with his forehead in the dirt. To do that, I'm going to become a pirate. I know that you wouldn't want me to do something like this if you were still here, but I'd be a criminal for hunting a marine anyway ... and I'd rather do that than the lawful thing and let Aizen get away with what he's done. Ichigo picked his head up. I hope that you can forgive me, wherever you are, because after my mission is done, there's no guarantee that I'll go to the same place. With his peace said and conscience cleared as he explained himself to his family, Ichigo returned the house and gathered a bag of the food left over and a change of clothes. He now wore an open black shirt with white lining, showing off the bandages he had wrapped around his torso, and dark green jeans with a belt that had a large silver buckle that read BLCH. He strolled through his empty island, looking to all the places he'd frequented as a child. He passed the dojo he'd trained in with his friends and the park that they'd eat lunch and play in. He kept his emotions in check as he stared at them, choosing here and now that on the sea he would stop crying. He was entering the greater world into a profession where weakness would be exploited. A lot like the hollow-infested Karakura, only his enemies would have intelligence now and not be mindless beasts. Being soft could get him and whoever else would be joining with him and Naruto killed, and with how naive the blonde was someone had to look out for everyone. You all ready to go? Naruto asked, standing next to his entrance point, having cut a hole in the gate to bring the ship to shore, and waiting for Ichigo's arrival. Decked out in his new clothes, a dark red jacket with vertical black stripes going down the arms that fed into the back making an X, and black jean shorts with silver studs lining the hem of the legs and the pockets. Yeah, I am. Ichigo tossed his bag into the dinghy but didn't step into it. I'm joining you, but I want to make something clear, Naruto. The blonde stood and listened to what Ichigo had to say. I've never wanted to be a pirate. I used to hate them, so I never imagined that I'd be standing here about to become one. But I want to set something straight before I do. Remember when I told you about 10 years ago? Ichigo saw the blonde nod his head. The virus didn't just appear. It was brought ... by a vice admiral in the Navy for an experiment. I don't know if the Navy knew about it or if he's going against them, but I do know that all the people that suffered because of what he did need him to pay before they can finally rest in peace. Ichigo looked Naruto in his eyes. I'm going to go out there and find him. The way I see it, becoming a pirate is the best way to get on his radar and make him come after me. Not to mention that I don't have to figure out how to sail myself. Ichigo at this point stepped into the boat. So, I want you to promise me that when I find him, you won't get in my way. Sure thing, Naruto said without taking a second to think about it. That was too easy. Ichigo sat down. Don't you want to know the guy's name? Do you want to tell me his name? Naruto asked, not looking back as he pushed the boat off using his powers. No? Then it doesn't matter. Your past is your business unless you want to tell me. I won't make you. Naruto smiled back at Ichigo, crossing his legs and staring toward the front of the boat. Besides, if you want to find that guy, then as your captain I should too. That's mature of you. Ichigo smirked and leaned back, resting his arms behind his head. So, where's this tub going anyway? Ichigo asked, closing his eyes and enjoying the breeze. I dunno, but the Grand Line eventually, Naruto said nonchalantly. Ichigo shot up when he heard that. What do you mean you don't know? You're a pirate. Yep, for all of 3 days. Just because I'm a pirate doesn't mean I know how to navigate, Naruto said without turning. How do you expect to get anywhere? You know you're probably right. Naruto tilted his head. Guess we know who we need to recruit next. And how are we going to reach an island? Well, like my Gramps told me, leave it to luck. Naruto nodded his head. Your Gramps, is he the one that got you to be a pirate? Ichigo asked. Yeah, he trained me before he had to get back home in the Grand Line. I promised him that I'd be a great pirate and meet him in the Grand Line, so I can tell him if I found the answer to a question. An answer? To what question? Ichigo rose his eyebrow. Not telling. I want to know if I found the answer first ... but I think I'm well on the way. Naruto smiled. Now let's focus on finding the next island. Keep your eyes peeled, Ichigo. I've only been a pirate for about 5 minutes and you're making me regret it already. Ichigo put his head in his hand while leaning over the side of the dinghy. Don't worry, we'll find the next island real quick and grab ourselves a navigator. I can feel it. I can't lie, that optimism is contagious. Ichigo sighed with a smile, looking toward the horizon with his captain. The now 2-man crew set sail in search of adventure and more specifically a navigator to direct their boat. Wind flowing through their hair and relaxed grins on their face as the clouds passed overhead, and the salty air reached their noses. Wake up, wake up, a deep voice called in a dark room found in an inn on the island. On the bed, a feminine figure stirred beneath the covers. Wake up, the voice yelled, causing the slumbering occupant to fall out of bed, pulling the curtains down with her, and causing the bright sun to filter into the room. What the hell? The female rubbed her head, rising from the floor in a bra and panties with blue and white horizontal stripes. You ain't my alarm clock, so what are you doing waking me up? I may not be an alarm clock, but I am in charge of your well-being. The deep voice calmly addressed the female. And part of that includes ensuring that you have sufficient funds for survival. Right now, you only have enough billy to pay for one more night here ... and no food, the voice informed the girl, who was going through her fridge and pulled out a lemon. Damn it, you're right. The girl sighed in anger and bit into the lemon without peeling it. Slamming the fridge shut, the girl walked back to the bedroom and turned to the armoire. Of course I am. I'm the only one that keeps track of such things. The voice sounded exasperated. No one asked you to do that. The girl growled and got dressed. But someone has to or else we would have been dead long ago, the voice retorted. Yeah, whatever. The girl rolled her eyes. Guess that means we gotta go hunting again. The girl kicked the door to her room open, showing the empty room and begging the question of who she was talking to. Any bounties in the area? Nothing that I've intercepted, so it appears we'll have to find them the old-fashioned way, the voice informed the girl. Fine. She took another bite from her lemon and stepped out of her room. The girl had black hair that reached the back of her neck with a red highlight on the left side of her face. Her clothing was the spectacle though, as she wore a sailor uniform with the top bearing her midriff, colored black and with a scarf resembling an eye over her left breast, and the right having an X. Her skirt is held by suspenders attached to the top with a belt and white sneakers. On her back was a guitar case held up by a single strap going around her right shoulder to her left hip. Guess we're gonna have to be on the lookout for small fry then. The girl walked outside, searching for pirates to turn in and collect the bounty. The two rookie pirates were drifting slowly along the expansive ocean, with Ichigo leaning back with his eyes closed while his captain could be seen jittering in place, sitting on the dinghy's ledge. "You're gonna tip the boat over if you shake it anymore." Ichigo cracked open his eye to look at the barely restrained blonde. "Can you blame me? I just can't wait until we get to the next island." Naruto turned to his crewmate with a wide grin. "Who knows what kind of stuff will be waiting for us there? It'll just be another boring clump of dirt that we stop on for a few hours before moving on to the next boring clump of dirt." Ichigo closed his eyes with a huff at his childish captain. "Why do you have to be such a wet blanket?" Naruto pouted. "Where's your sense of adventure? Told you yesterday. I had no interest in being a pirate and so, no interest in seeing the world. This was just a convenient option." Ichigo smiled without looking at the fuming blonde. "Besides, the only reason we should care about the next island is because we're running out of food already." Ichigo looked to the pitiful bag next to him that contained only one can, which then floated over to Naruto, who proceeded to eat the contents. "I know what you mean. Who would have thought that you'd be so unprepared for the voyage?" Naruto sighed, downing the contents of the can without a second thought. "You're one to talk. And I brought a week's worth of food with me." Ichigo sat up indignantly. "I just never expected my captain to be such a glutton." Ichigo pointed an accusing finger at the oblivious blonde. "And I never expected my first mate to not think ahead." Naruto stuck his tongue out and tossed the empty can into the ocean. "That's your job, Captain." Ichigo grit his teeth and had veins bulging from his forehead. It was like dealing with a child. "Hope we find an island soon." Naruto put a hand to his chin and thought. "Can't survive long without a good meal. If someone knew how to navigate, then we wouldn't have to drift around hoping for an island to appear," Ichigo said, exhausted from having to deal with the carefree pirate. "For all we know, we could have passed one by since we left Karakura." Then that means they wouldn't have been fun. "Luck will give us an island that's the best for an adventure." Naruto looked ahead to the empty sea. "I'm more concerned with restocking." Ichigo leaned back again. "Not to mention we'd be right back where we started once we set out again." "Then we've got our mission." Naruto pointed ahead. "Restock food stores and find a navigator for our crew." "Aye aye," Ichigo said sarcastically. "Put some energy into it. Maybe when we actually find an island." Ichigo turned over onto his side away from the blonde and muttered under his breath, "If we find an island." "Hey." Naruto huffed hard enough that the wind blew against Ichigo and mussed his hair. "Knock it off." Ichigo jumped up and started to pull on Naruto's cheeks, with the blonde returning the childish action by yanking on Ichigo's bottom lip with one hand and pulling on the skin around the orange head's eye with the other. While the pair bickered with each other, an island slowly came into view behind the blonde that the two would pass by during their childish argument before hurriedly turning their dinghy around to reach their salvation ... and arguing over the fact they'd almost missed it. "You started it. Just because I was right about you having no idea where we were going doesn't give you a pass. Whether an island showed up or not, I would have seen it sooner if you hadn't said anything." This continued as the two slowly paddled their way back to the island. This day and the one following would certainly pique Naruto's interest, having the adventure he'd wished for and completing the mission that he'd set for himself and Ichigo. Ryuko, a voice that only one person could hear, spoke as its wearer strolled through the streets of the rural-looking island. The most standout feature of the plain island was the striped tower toward its back, the marine base. The girl that heard the voice had her brows furrowed and her eyes sharp as she glared ahead of her, her odd gear-shaped blue eyes darting from person to person as they passed her, frightening them off. "Ryuko," the voice repeated. "I know already." She growled to the voice and looked down to her sailor uniform, blushing in embarrassment when the onlookers looked at her strangely. "Don't you think I'm trying to find pirates?" She moved forward while cupping her hand around her mouth to hide the fact she was speaking to her clothes. "Like I told you a day ago, I haven't intercepted any communications saying that pirates with bounties are making their way here. It seems you might have built a reputation for yourself." The clothing moved its eye upward to meet the girl's. "Pirates are most likely avoiding the island based on your presence. A boon for the populace but a detriment to us. It might be time to move on." The clothing offered a solution. "You might be right, but I'd feel more comfortable with some food before hitting the road." Ryuko grumbled and put her hands behind her head. Perhaps you would have food if you hadn't spent the last of the money on another night at the inn. The clothing sighed and closed its lone eye. I wanted a bed, the girl said simply. It wouldn't have been the first time you slept on a boat, Ruko, and you forget that I can tell when you lie. You simply wanted to compensate the kindly keeper for putting up with your moods and destruction of property. The clothing called the blushing girl out as she tried to act tough. Whatever, she cried indignantly. The point is I want to eat before we leave, so there. Sigh, then we are right back where we started. Perhaps we should head toward that island, the clothing said. That'd be 3 days. Ruko clicked her teeth. I thought pirates were supposed to be tough, but all it takes are rumors of a bounty hunter for them to turn tail and run. She sighed in frustration and disappointment, beginning to round a building's corner when she heard a shout. We made it. A new island, Naruto shouted after taking a deep breath through his nose. Keep it down, you're drawing attention. Ichigo stretched behind the blonde and let out a yawn, ignoring the fact that he was also a spectacle because of the large sword strapped to his back. You're just as happy as I am. This is just what we needed. Naruto regarded his crewmate. You aren't wrong about that. At least we can resupply. Ichigo agreed with his captain. Now let's grab some grub. Naruto made to run off with Billy in hand only to be yanked back by Ichigo. Hold it. The swordsman pulled the blonde back to face him. I'll handle resupplying the food, so give me the money. I can do it. Don't you trust me? No, Ichigo answered simply. Let me prove it. What food are you going to buy? Meat and a few sweets. Probably. Naruto searched Ichigo's eyes hoping he was answering correctly. Water. And that's exactly why I'm handling the food. All we have is a small dinghy, so grabbing an appropriate and balanced amount is the best thing to do. Not to mention that without refrigeration we can't overload on things that can spoil, Ichigo explained to the odd blonde. Whoa, you're amazing. I had to live on my own for a decade, remember. Learning simple survival stuff was a must. Ichigo crossed his arms. Then if you're handling the groceries, then I'll go find a navigator for the crew before we leave. Naruto looked off in his imagination, wondering what his new nakama would be like. I said we just need to stock up and then leave. Ichigo trailed off and thought to himself, though it'd probably be a good idea to have him preoccupied so he can't get into too much trouble. Ichigo thought to himself, fine, but only until I'm done shopping, so that gives you about an hour. That's not enough time, Naruto whined. Yeah, well that's what you're working with. Besides, the chances of finding a navigator, let alone one crazy enough to join a rookie pirate crew on this podunk island, is small. Ichigo brushed off the blonde and started to make his way into the town. But I found you on a podunk island, Naruto said nonchalantly. That was different, and Karakura wasn't podunk, but it was small and out of the way, like this one. Naruto said innocently. Just go look for a navigator already before I cut you. Ichigo reached his hand to Zangetsu threateningly with sharp teeth as he yelled. You're right. Naruto perked up. I only have an hour, so I have to look fast. Just don't cause any trouble. Ichigo pointed to the horizon directly at a striped building. There's a marine base on the island. We don't want any unnecessary attention, so keep a low profile. Gotcha, Naruto answered and shot off, kicking up an insane amount of dust, knocking pedestrians off their feet, and rattling some buildings because of the wind gusts that had burst from his jumping off point. Ichigo was the only person still on his feet, a bead of sweat falling on the back of his head, watching as his captain continued down the road and took a sharp turn, all while keeping the same amount of speed. Totally inconspicuous. Ichigo grumbled and sighed. He scratched the back of his head and continued, it'll only be for an hour. I'm sure he'll be fine. Even he can't get into trouble that fast. He assured himself kind of, and walked up to one of the recovering civilians to ask where the nearest grocery store was. As the two pirates went about their business in town, the female bounty hunter hid behind a building's corner, overhearing their conversation. A wicked smirk was on her face and her eyes gleamed with the light of opportunity. Did you hear that, Senketsu? Ruko grinned at her sentient clothing. Yes, it seems that we've stumbled into a great opportunity. The now named article of clothing looked up to its owner. Do you know who they are? She asked. Nothing. They weren't kidding about being rookies, it seems, Senketsu answered. Damn, nobodies. They won't be worth much. Ruko mused and rubbed her chin. Beggars can't be choosers, Ruko. Right now, these two are your only chance of earning funds, Senketsu reminded her. Yeah, you're right. So, I'm guessing Sword Boy is in charge. From what we've observed, I'd say yes. He has a more commanding presence than the blonde and took charge of the situation when they first arrived. With that evidence, I'm 70% sure that the swordsman is the captain of the crew, Senketsu reasoned. Only 70%. Ruko raised an eyebrow. This is only data compiled on first impressions. It would be foolish to assume anything based on one encounter. Without battle data, we wouldn't have the full picture of their potential, Senketsu advised the disbelieving girl. PSHT, I doubt that blonde doofus could be the captain, Senketsu. Did you see him? Of course, I did, but you could say the same for you, Ruko. I'm sure if you met any pirate or ruffian that hadn't heard of you, they wouldn't think much of you either. Guess you've got a point, Ruko begrudgingly conceded. But it doesn't matter, they'll end up in the same place either way. I've got a plan. And it is, Senketsu asked. We're gonna go after Blondie and catch him. We'll turn him into the Marines and get the money before going after the swordsman. Since they're such a small crew, whether Swordboy cares about Blondie would be irrelevant. So after turning in the blonde we lie and tell the swordsman we've got him and catch him too, Ruko explained. Given what little information we have on them, it is the best course of action to sequester them from each other and deal with them individually. Senketsu agreed with his partner's course of action. Then it's settled, the girl smirked, showing her canines, hefted her guitar case onto her shoulder, and looked off in the direction that her target ran off in. Time to go hunting. 30 minutes later with Naruto. The blonde pirate was still running through the tiny island, having burst through many a door of different shops asking if anyone knew of navigators present on the island, and being driven out when his blast of wind would catch up with him, causing the shops to be sullied by the great gust that brought debris, dust, and a few unconscious civilians through the busted doors. To say the blonde made no progress would be an understatement. He screamed as he ran, barreling over obstacles left and right as his eyes darted in a panic, desperately trying to find someone that seemed navigatory. It's already been 30 minutes and I haven't found anyone. Naruto stopped in the middle of the street and held his head in despair. I can't go back to Ichigo and have nothing. I can just imagine his stupid face. Naruto imagined a very crude-looking Ichigo with poorly drawn features and a smug smirk on his face while picking his nose. I told you that you wouldn't find any navigators on this island. Maybe you should listen to me more often. Huh? I don't want to hear that. Naruto huffed a fist in front of his face and sharpened eyes. I gotta find a navigator or a map so we know where we're going at least. The blonde made to start running again when, hey, pirate. The blonde stopped himself instantly, running in place to keep his energy up as he turned his head in the direction that the voice came from. Yeah. Ruko's sweat dropped. Seriously, someone calls you a pirate and you answer. Naruto widened his eyes and slapped a hand over his mouth before coming up with an intelligent answer. I mean, I'm not a pirate. He didn't meet Ruko's eyes at all while answering. You can't be for real. Ruko's eye twitched. But say I was one, who's asking? Naruto asked, hypothetically. Okay. The girl rubbed her forehead to stymie an incoming headache. A bounty hunter, with that. The girl stuck her arm out to the side and dropped her guitar case on the ground next to her with an audible thud. Bounty hunter. Naruto scratched the top of his head. If I was a pirate, I'm new, so I don't have a bounty yet. Because I'm not one. Naruto smiled to himself, thinking that he covered his tracks perfectly. This is painful to watch, Ruko sighed. You don't have to keep pretending. I overheard you and your swordsman pal talking at the dock. Naruto seemed relieved that he didn't have to continue his brilliant charade any longer, and allowed his body to relax. That's great. Yeah, I'm a rookie pirate, so I'm not worth anything. Naruto raised a hand sheepishly. Now if you'll excuse me, Naruto made to rush off again, but his unwanted acquaintance stopped him again. I know that you guys aren't famous, but that hardly matters. Ruko smirked and opened her guitar case as she continued. The Marines'll pay me for nipping potential threats in the bud before they get too huge, and depending on how dangerous they think you two are, they'll pay accordingly. Naruto watched the girl while half listening, evidenced by the fact his eyes were half lidded and he was picking his ear clean. Looking at the finger he'd used to clean his ear, flicked the debris off, and tuned back in for the girl's ending line. So, I'm taking you both in. Ruko stood back up, weapon in hand, only for the blonde to turn his back on her and wave over his shoulder. No thanks, I promised I wouldn't cause trouble. Naruto responded without concern. Where the hell do you think you're going? Ruko fumed indignantly. Just cause you're trying to pick a fight with me doesn't mean I have to fight back. I told my Nekama that I wouldn't make a fuss while we were here, so that's what I'm going to do. What kind of pirate runs from a fight? Are you a chicken or something? Ruko got angrier when the blonde shrugged. If that's what you want to believe. I don't have anything to prove, Naruto answered. It was then that the blonde pirate bent his legs to duck an attack by the irate bounty hunter. Craning his neck, Naruto was met with a blood-red blade that had the appearance of half a pair of scissors. Naruto asked to no one in particular and threw a punch toward the girl, who blocked with the flat of her odd blade. What happened to staying out of trouble? Ruko smirked. You attacked me first. Technically you're starting the trouble and I'm just defending myself, Naruto countered, pushing against the girl and causing her to be pushed back bit by bit. At the dock with Ichigo, the swordsman had just returned to the dinghy and tossed the recently bought groceries into the vessel. Looking to the sky, while rummaging through one of the bags to take out a bar of chocolate, he realized how quickly he'd accomplished his mission. Only took about 30 minutes. Ichigo munched on the candy and grumbled to himself. Guess I'll just have to wait on him, then. I did give him an hour, after all, so it's only fair. Ichigo sat in the dinghy and leaned back, holding the bar of chocolate between his teeth and chuckled to himself as he closed his eyes. Wonder if he found our navigator yet. As soon as the orange swordsman finished his thought, a loud rumble ran across the island, making Ichigo shoot up in surprise and chomp right through the chocolate. A large dust cloud started to rise into the air, and more joined it with continuous booms and thuds preceding each. What did I tell him? Ichigo shouted in comical anger and ran toward the commotion with the intent of finding his captain and cutting him for ignoring what he'd said. Back with Ryuko and Naruto. Naruto dodged another slash from the girl, dirt covering his form from being blasted through buildings when she managed to get a hit on him, but otherwise fine. He moved to the side and threw another punch at the wild girl that she once again blocked, only to be caught off guard when he kicked her away. Damn it, fight serious already. Look at what you're doing. She motioned to the rubble surrounding the both of them. What I'm doing? You attacked me. You're the one that's destroying everything. Naruto responded to her childish accusation with his own. Only because you keep dodging and blocking me. Hold still and it'll be over. Ryuko ran at Naruto. Are you nuts? I'm not trying to die. Ryuko. Senketsu spoke up just as the two met in another clash. I'm a little busy right now, Ryuko answered, glaring into the blue eyes of her opponent. You cannot win as you are. The piece of clothing told the girl. What's that supposed to mean? Who are you talking to? Naruto asked, confused. None of your damn business. Oh, this is a bounty hunter trick, isn't it? Naruto blinked. Ryuko took her blade and went for a horizontal slash across Naruto's midsection. But he jumped high and drew his legs in to avoid the blade before kicking forward with both legs and had his feet meet the girl's face. The blow caused the girl to go skipping across the ground and into another building. Damn, you distracted me, Senketsu. Ryuko held her face and wiped the blood from underneath her nose. Perhaps now you will listen to me, the uniform said. Now that we've had the time to trade blows with him, I can confirm that he is above you in terms of speed and raw power, Senketsu informed Ryuko. He's just getting lucky. No, he has controlled this confrontation since the beginning. You haven't landed a single debilitating hit on him while he has had several chances and has managed to keep you at bay all the same. You can't be serious. Just look at him, Ryuko sneered. Looks are deceiving. He is unlike any of the pirates that you've dealt with so far. Therefore, to close the gap there is only one alternative, Senketsu said seriously as he looked into the girl's eyes. We haven't had to do that for a while. Do we really have to just for one guy? The girl blushed, knowing what her partner was insinuating. Without a doubt in my mind. Outside, the pirate was looking into the dust cloud, expecting the girl to come barreling out again as she'd done before. With a hand above his eyes, he squinted to try and see any movement. Maybe she's finally done. Naruto wondered aloud. Crossing his arms, Naruto sighed. What's with people always attacking me when I haven't done anything? Is every island going to be like this? Sorry to keep you waiting, Blondie. Ryuko dusted herself off, stepping out of the cloud with a confident smirk. You're all right. PSH, I've been through worse. I just never expected you to be as tough as you are, is all, she scoffed. At that, she raised her left hand next to her head, showing off a red fingerless glove. But things are going to be a lot different now. Ryuko then pulled a pin off of the bottom of her glove, activating a syringe that drew blood and fed it into Senketsu, and flowed throughout the clothing. When the living article of clothing was given its owner's essence, its threads burst from her body, leaving her naked as it began to restructure and rewrap around her body in a show of light and kicked up dust. Naruto watched all this happen with an arm raised to shield his eyes, sweat running down his forehead, and swallowing nervously as he observed the spot where the girl stood. I know what this is. The stance. The lights. Naruto spoke in a seemingly worried voice. I know exactly what you're doing. The blonde then gained stars in his eyes, looking directly at the light that the girl was engulfed in and wept. It's a transformation sequence. That's what you're focusing on. Ryuko heard the blonde through the noise of her transformation before finishing. Her clothing changed to look more mechanical, with large wings coming from her shoulders, and one of them had the appearance of an eye. The top half of her new outfit covered her neck, underside of her jaw, arms, and the upper half of her breasts. Behind her was a ventilation grill that was centered on her upper back, keeping with the red and black color scheme. Her skirt became shorter, causing much more of her legs to be exposed as they now sported high-heel boots that reached her thighs. All in all, it was rather revealing. Naruto tilted his head and crossed his arms in confusion as he looked the girl up and down. This seemed to embarrass the girl as she blushed at the pirate's wandering gaze. "What the hell are you staring at?" Ruko cried out, but it sounded more like an embarrassed squeal. "What are you wearing?" Naruto asked simply. "Who cares about that?" Ruko had enough at that point and sped toward Naruto. The pirate widened his eyes at the speed upgrade the girl had gotten as he narrowly dodged her scissor blade, receiving a cut on his cheek once she'd passed him. Blood leaked out from the small cut, having the blonde run a finger across the small slit in slight surprise. "Aw, you nicked me." Naruto looked to his bloodied fingers with an oddly blank expression but surprise in his eyes. "You got good reflexes, pirate." Ruko turned and leaned her blade on her shoulder, looking at the pirate's back. "You should count yourself lucky. I don't wear this thing for just anybody, you know." Ruko bragged slightly and pointed the scissor at Naruto. "Normally, I have to put this on to take out entire crews." She then dashed at the blonde as he turned to meet her. "You won't be getting out of this with just a nick on the cheek." Naruto called wind to both of his arms and blocked the girl's blade, causing sparks to shoot off where the attacks met. Ruko became shocked when she saw the blonde raise his bare arms to protect himself from the scissor blade, and her surprise increased when the sparks had appeared. The hell? Eyes widening in realization, the bounty hunter deduced just what kind of pirate she was fighting. "You've got freaking devil fruit powers." "Yeah," Naruto answered simply. Noticing that he was being pushed back, Naruto planted his feet into the ground and halted himself. Fascinating." Senketsu mumbled to himself. "Man, you're stronger and faster than before." Naruto sighed but looked into Ruko's eyes with a dead serious gaze. "But what else could I expect from someone with a rad transformation sequence like that? This guy is so stupid." Ruko groaned. "I'll take you seriously now." Naruto reared his fist back and punched Ruko in the stomach, wind exploding from the impact and making her skid backward. "Ugh," the girl grunted from the impact, managing to keep herself upright and righting herself as she stopped. Her heels clicked on the ground when she regained her balance, a scuff mark on her stomach from Naruto's punch. "All right, then." Ruko used her superior speed to outpace Naruto's eyes, making it appear that there were copies of herself due to the extreme pace she was moving. Naruto stood in place, darting his eyes around to find the girl among her afterimages. Suddenly, the hairs on the back of Naruto's neck bristled, and he moved to the side as the blade whiffed past him. Just as Naruto went to extend his senses again, he was caught off guard by a slash across his torso that he narrowly backed away from, mitigating the serious blow that he would have received. "Not feeling so cocky now, are ya?" Ruko taunted, believing in her safety. "K's Ken." Naruto fired the attack in an attempt to hit Ruko, only managing to muss her hair. "He almost managed to hit you," Senketsu warned. "It was just dumb luck. He has no idea where we are." Naruto proved this when he fired another wind blast in the opposite direction. "He's open." Ruko went to stab Naruto in the back, but the pirate once again managed to avoid the girl by the skin of his teeth and even brush against her shoulder. "Alright, I'm getting used to your speed now. This reminds me of Haku, only you move faster." Naruto smiled. "What?" Ruko's eye twitched, not believing that the blonde could do what so many other pirates couldn't. Whenever she activated Senketsu, no pirate could last more than a few minutes. Yet this one that was much younger than the others she'd put away managed to keep her on her toes the entire time. "Gotcha." Naruto appeared in front of the girl and grabbed her shoulders. "I have to admit, you're fast. I could barely keep up with what you were doing, but as long as I keep my hands on you." Naruto grinned. It doesn't matter how fast you move. "Get off," Ruko cried. "Ruko," Senketsu shouted. Naruto reared his head back, gathering an audible amount of wind that swirled around his head and rushed forward. "Tapu Heda." Naruto's forehead met Ruko's and blasted her backward, causing her to slam into another building. The girl struggled to keep conscious after the blow. Bringing a hand to her head, Ruko brought herself to her knees and propped herself up with her scissor blade. "What's with this guy? He's built so tough," she wondered to herself, seeing the blonde standing ready in case she attacked again. Ruko. Now that we've been able to gather more data, I can conclude that this is a fight that you cannot win." Senketsu looked to the injured girl. "You've got to be kidding me." Ruko growled. "He was overpowering you before you activated me. Now that you have, well, you've done better. You have ultimately only shortened the gap between you by a small margin," Senketsu explained. "He can match our strength and comprehend our speed. This blonde is on a level above any pirate that we've seen before." So what, you expect me to run away? Ruko finally stood back up and got ready to continue fighting the blonde. No. He may have us bested in raw power, but that is also his downfall. He is a brute that doesn't look before he leaps, relying on his strength and instincts to get him out of situations. Senketsu left his sentence hanging for his partner to finish. So he doesn't think ahead. Ruko smiled and relaxed her stance, her sharp eyes boring into his own. Naruto prepared himself, expecting another rush from the girl that he'd have to defend himself from like he had so many times before during this fight. He wondered what kind of flurry she might unleash on him with her speed and strength brought on by her transformation. Perhaps she even had more up her sleeve. He was excited and cautious to see what Ruko's next move would be. "Yanni," she called as she turned and ran down the street away from the blonde pirate. Naruto fell to the floor in shock before shooting up with an irate expression, veins bulging from his forehead. "Where the hell are you going? Finish the fight you picked." Naruto rushed after the girl with reckless abandon. As the girl turned down a corner, she looked down at her clothing. "You ready, Senketsu?" she asked while raising her hand to get ready for whatever plans she had. "Of course," he answered simply, "if you're gonna pick a fight." Naruto was suddenly next to Ruko in a blur of movement, bringing his leg up and striking her in the side. Then you've got to see it through. The blow sent her careening down the street she was running down. Ruko ground her teeth in pain, rolled with the force, and righted herself to continue fleeing. Looking behind her, she saw her opponent giving chase with an angry expression, and she gave a knowing smirk as she was the only one of the two to notice the close to imperceptible twinkle that the blonde ran through. The game of cat and mouse continued for a good while, Ruko dodging and weaving through the blonde's many attacks while blocking and tanking a few hits as not to make it obvious what she planned to do. And we find ourselves at the end of the game of tag, Ruko skidding into the side of a building with the rubble keeping her upright so she could see the blonde pirate as he stood a ways off from her. "Damn, that one hurt a bit," Ruko groaned. "What's with you? First, you're all dead set on catching me, then you turn tail and run. I was supposed to meet with my friend in an hour." Naruto grumbled to the down girl. "Cry me a freakin' river. It's my job. I couldn't care less about what you pirates are up to," Ruko retorted while wincing in pain, discreetly casting an eye to something before darting it back to meet with the blonde's eyes. "Maybe ... but we didn't do anything. And how long would it have taken before you did? Sigh, this is pointless. You can't fight anymore, and I have to go." Naruto turned around at that. "Go see a doctor." "Damn it, gotta bait him," Ruko thought. "You're such a chicken that you can't finish off a girl. You can't even get up," Naruto pointed out. "If you don't take me out now, I'm just gonna come for you again. Maybe I'll just take out that swordsman instead." Ruko smirked. "Hey, I struck a nerve. What kind of pirate cares about his ... what you call him? Nekama." Ruko saw the blonde's anger build. "Every pirate I've put away has screamed bloody murder when I caught him ... Some ratted out their crewmates just for me to let him go. Captains tried to abandon their men to survive." Naruto's rage was beginning to boil over. "Pirates are just scum that treads all over people's lives and only care about their own," Ruko shouted. "Shut up." Naruto kicked off the ground with incredible speed, seeming to fly directly at the girl. Ruko stared Naruto down unafraid, smirking. She struck a hand out and grabbed something from the air, a red thread that seemed to shimmer into existence that leads a swarm of similar threads that suddenly became visible. Ruko pulled the thread with all her might. Snapping could be heard from all the fibers as they drew taut, and Ruko muttered one word. "Gotcha." Naruto barely had a second to register the trick before the thread coiled around him, forcing his arms behind his back and wrapping around his torso. The blonde blinked in surprise and, unable to stop his momentum, fell to the ground while continuing forward until he stopped in front of the female bounty hunter. "Eh?" he asked incredulously, eyes wide. "Not so tough now, are ya?" Ruko planted her heel in the middle of Naruto's back with a triumphant smirk on her face. "Wait a minute. You said all that stuff to get me into a trap?" Naruto asked from his down position. "You cheated." "What kind of pirate complains about cheating?" Ruko looked away with a shocked face. "I ain't stupid. I couldn't beat you through just fightin', so trapping was the only way to win." "No fair." Naruto wiggled on the ground trying to use his strength to break free, even calling on the wind to try and cut his binds to no avail. "How come I can't cut these? You think I'd wrap up a devil fruit user with any rope? That stuff isn't gonna break. I haven't found a single thing other than my scissor that can cut through 'em," Ruko boasted to the captured blonde. "What the hell?" Naruto tried even harder and sharpened his gusts all the more, but only managed to hear the sound of grinding metal. "Never thought you'd give me that much of a workout. But it's over now." Ruko deactivated Senketsu and wiped her forehead. You'll fetch me a good amount of bully even if you are a rookie with that devil fruit of yours. The Marines want guys like you. Stop to S.A.P. Looks like I did them another favor. Ruko then began to drag Naruto toward the Marine base. Damn it, I fell for another trap, Naruto wheezed, falling to his side as he was dragged through town. He then gained a thoughtful look. You fight too weird. First, you were just coming at me over and over, then you transform and try and outspeed me ... then you run and set a trap. Naruto glanced at the back of the girl. It's like you have two brains. What are you babbling about back there? Ruko looked to see the blonde staring at her suspiciously. Don't give me that. I outsmarted you fair and square. You should have been more cautious. Now I'm gonna go after that captain of yours next. Ruko turned back and continued dragging the blonde. Captain? Naruto wondered what she meant. You should be happy that the battle ended when it did. Ruko, Senketsu spoke to the bounty hunter. Yeah, and why's that? I had him on the ropes. Ruko spoke out loud and patted herself on the back. Indeed, Senketsu humored the girl while rolling his eye. But, in truth, you would have fainted from blood loss if you hadn't switched strategies, Senketsu warned the shocked teen. This boy never ceases to amaze, able to keep up with us in life fiber synchronization and force you to flee, and all as a fledgling. Senketsu moved his eye in the direction of the calm blonde. You've got a point ... and he ain't even the captain. That swordsman has gotta be even tougher. Ruko furrowed her brow, wondering how she would defeat Ichigo when the time came. I wonder, Senketsu thought to himself, contemplating what he'd seen. There it is. Ruko unknowingly cut off the article of clothing's train of thought as the Marine base came into view. You're about to get to your last stop, pirate. Huh? Oh, a Marine base ... It's my first time seeing one. Naruto looked to the tall building in wonder and saw the ships in a row behind it, floating in the base's port. Not the reaction I was expecting. Shouldn't you be bawling your eyes out and screaming about how you'll get me? Ruko rose a brow. Naruto blinked and then smiled. Nah, I mean I still don't like that you tricked me and stuff. But being mad isn't going to help. And if I can't cut these ropes, there's no use in wasting my energy. Ichigo will come and get me as soon as he can, Naruto stated with no room for doubt in his voice. HMPH, you think that guy would come and save a subordinate that got caught within an hour of visiting an island? Ruko scoffed. Subordinate. Naruto tilted his head. The odd pair then entered the Marine base and disappeared within. A shadow hiding behind a building close by placed a hand to its forehead in frustration. I guess I shouldn't underestimate the amount of trouble that idiot can get into in less than an hour. Ichigo sighed while in hiding. Looking to the bounty hunter, Ichigo narrowed his eyes. Whoever that girl is, she's no pushover if she can catch that moron so easily. Better not get involved with her or else that'll just bring more heat down on me and Naruto ... not to mention those weird ropes she's using. Ichigo looked to the red threads, noticing that the blonde wasn't trying to escape from them, which meant they most likely tougher than they appeared. I'll just wait till she puts him into Marine custody then. I can deal with a few soldiers before anyone knows what's going on. Ichigo sighed to himself, what a troublesome captain. With his mission set, Ichigo awaited Ruko's leave from the base so he could pounce, planning to retrieve his crewmate, run back to their ship, and sail away before the Marines or the bounty hunter could realize what was happening. The swordsman propped himself against the building he was hiding behind and waited. Yo, I got a haul. Ruko entered the island's bastion of justice with a boisterous shout and grin, dragging a frowning pirate behind her. At the front desk of the base was a lone Marine who jumped slightly because of the sudden noise, being roused from the nap he was taking. Rubbing his eyes, the man rested his arm on the desk to hold his head up as the girl approached him and he gave a lazy wave. If it isn't the she-devil herself. Got yourself another catch, eh? The Marine yawned. You bet your ass I do. This one should be worth a good amount. Gave me some trouble a little bit ago, Ruko told the man. Really? I'd heard that there were slim pickings around these parts cause of your reputation growing. Word is that you're the South Blue Zone Roronoa Zoro, both your names send pirates heading for the hills. You're gonna make us look bad. The Marine lazily smiled and joked. I wouldn't have to if you did your job better. But I can't deny that there are hardly any ballsy pirates coming through anymore. So after this bounty, I'll be heading out. Ruko pointed downward to the blonde as she spoke. Hold your horses. Gotta see your haul first, then we can see how much bully you're owed. The man stood up behind the desk so he could lean over and see the pirate that the girl had. Once the man had laid eyes on the teen pirate sitting cross-legged on the floor, tied tightly by the red ropes, he couldn't help but deadpan at Naruto's unassuming form. The two of them even locked eyes, with Naruto sticking his tongue out while giving the Marine a side glance from the ground. Rising back up, the Marine stared at the girl unamused and crossed his arms as he became very serious all of a sudden. Are you joking? He asked with a raised brow. Ruko became offended. Of course not. I know how he looks, but he's really dangerous. Didn't you hear all those explosions and feel the quakes? That was us fighting. He's even got devil fruit powers. Ruko growled. Well, you normally go overboard when capturing pirates whether or not they are strong enough to defend themselves. So it's par for the course for you to cause so much destruction. Ruko blushed because she couldn't deny that. This kid doesn't look like he could hurt a fly, let alone be a pirate. Well, you should see the captain of his crew. He has this huge sword and looks like more trouble than Blondie here. Ruko defended herself. Really? The Marine asked skeptically. Looking down to the nonchalant blonde again, the man decided to see just how parady this kid was. Son, just how old are you? The man asked. Naruto perked up when the Marine talked to him and answered simply, I'm 18. What? There's no way you're a year older than me. Ruko looked surprised by the information. And how big is this pirate crew of yours? The man rubbed his chin. There's one other guy. Your ship. It's a dinghy, Naruto answered proudly for his mode of transportation. And do you have a flag? Not yet, but I've got ideas. Naruto beamed. Let this kid go. The Marine rubbed his forehead. What? Why? Ruko asked, shocked. This kid can't be a pirate. He answered all of my questions way too easily. He's way too calm for a captured criminal on the verge of being imprisoned. And just look at him. The Marine gestured his hand to the smiling blonde. The only crime he seems to be guilty of is not acting his age. You can't be serious. You don't know how dangerous this guy is. Ruko slammed her hands onto the desk. You should know better than to try and pull one over on the Marines. Miss, the man pulled down his Marine cap over his eyes. Come back when you've brought a real pirate to turn in. Damn it, I'll be back, and I'll bring the other guy. Then you'll see. She stomped her way out of the base, her tag-along right behind her. Once outside, Ruko sighed loudly while looking to the sky and raking a hand through her hair. Now she was broke, couldn't leave the island until she caught the swordsman, and was stuck with the blonde. That was a less than ideal outcome. Senketsu added his 2 cents. No shit, Ruko mumbled angrily. What shall be the next move? Ruko, it is getting late. We haven't the funds to return to the inn for the night, and cannot buy food which you are in desperate need of after exerting so much energy. Senketsu listed off their problems. Geez, laying it on thick, aren't ya? Ruko scratched the back of her head but had to admit her partner was right. Suo ... you're gonna let me go now, right? Naruto asked with a straight face. Not on your life. She bent down to look Naruto into his eyes. But you're supposed to be a law-abiding citizen, and that Marine told you to let me go. Naruto's eyes bulged out in shock. The Marines are idiots. I know what you're capable of. They just haven't seen the same things I have. That's why I have to go and get your friend now, so they can see a real threat. She smirked. I was planning to catch him after dropping you off by lying and leading him into a trap, but looks like I'll be telling the truth when I tell him I've got you. If he even plans on saving you, of course. Of course he will. Ikigol kick your ass. Naruto cheered. Keep dreaming. Ruko moved in the direction of the inn to retrieve her meager number of belongings and figure out just where she'd shelter herself for the night, unknowingly being followed by the pirate swordsman who was grumbling as his plans had to change. I suppose I can't blame them for not believing that Naruto's a pirate. I probably wouldn't have believed him either if we hadn't fought. But that just makes it more annoying to save him from this chick. Ichigo frowned as he saw the girl enter an inn. Oh, hello, dear. A kind-looking woman waved from behind the desk, the innkeeper. There was quite a commotion a little bit ago. Everyone was getting thrown in a tizzy about it, so I knew it couldn't have been anyone but you, the woman teased. Yeah, sorry about that, ma'am. Ruko rubbed the back of her head, embarrassed, and blushed slightly. It was like looking at a different person. I'm only teasing, dear. Honestly, we're all happy that someone is taking care of the pirates. I think we can all deal with some loud noises every once in a while. She put a hand to her cheek. No problem. Gotta make money somehow, so might as well lend a hand while doing it, she smirked confidently. An opportunist then? The woman asked. Something like that. While the two talked, Naruto watched with interest as the normally irate bounty hunter was much calmer, polite, and even kind compared to the way she talked to him and the Marine. He tilted his head while observing the interaction with growing interest. Sorry to be the bearer of bad news, dear, but I'm going to have to ask for payment for another night here. The woman broached the subject uneasily. Right? Ruko frowned and then, showing humility and vulnerability, she bowed to the woman. I have to thank you for housing me and dealing with my attitude all this time, ma'am. I really appreciate it, but I can't pay, Ruko told the woman. Really? I thought you had captured another pirate with the recent fuss. I did, but those idiots didn't want to take him. Now I've got to hunt down his pal if I want to make any money, Ruko explained. Oh, is that who that is down there? The woman looked surprised. Well, who do you think it was that I'd have tied up? Ruko asked. I don't know how you kids today date. I thought you might be. No way. Not with this clown. Ruko stopped the woman from elaborating. What are you talking about? Naruto was completely in the dark. None of your damn business. She whacked him on the head. You shouldn't attack people that can't defend themselves, Naruto whined. Are you sure you aren't together? The woman asked. No, Ruko denied. With all the excitement and running around she'd done, her energy was almost depleted, and it was at that moment that the girl's stomach let out a loud growl. Oh man, I've been so busy. Ruko sighed and wobbled slightly on her feet. Oh my. The woman thought to herself for a second and then moved to the back room behind the desk, before returning with a bento box and a row of rice balls. You may not be my guest anymore, but I can't let you leave on an empty stomach when you've been defending us all this time. She smiled to the bounty hunter. I can't accept this, ma'am. Ruko pushed the food back, but her stomach disagreed. I think you can and will, young lady. The woman shoved the food into Ruko's arms and placed a finger to her lips to stop any protests. You work yourself much too hard, you know. You have to remember to take care of yourself. Ruko smiled and nodded. Thank you very much. The innkeeper then leaned forward. Just between you and me, there are some older homes that you could squat in for a bit. They aren't in the greatest shape, but it would be better than sleeping outside at the very least. The woman smiled. Whoa, you rock, ma'am. I can't thank you enough for all your help, Ruko beamed. Just make sure that you take care. She waved as Ruko went to grab her belongings from her former room. I will. And you be sure to treat her right, the woman said to the blonde as he was dragged behind Ruko. You should tell her that. Naruto frowned, thudding up the stairs painfully. The duo soon left the inn, with the two women giving their final goodbyes as Ruko left to go find one of the abandoned houses to stay in for the night and finally eat. You know, I think I had you all wrong. Naruto suddenly talked after a few minutes, catching the attention of his captor. I thought you were just some rude, mean bounty hunter ... but you're actually pretty nice. I mean, you have to be if you're protecting all these people. Naruto smiled. TCH, what brought that up? Ruko asked. That innkeeper lady helped you even though you couldn't pay her any more money. She even gave you food, Naruto pointed out. All I did was give her trouble. The least I could do was apologize and say goodbye, Ruko answered. No, now you're lying. You like helping everyone out, don't you? Is that why you're a bounty hunter? 'Cause you didn't sound like you were in it for the money back there. Naruto dug in deeper. So, what if I do, huh? Ruko stopped. I got this power. I might as well use it to help people. Ruko seemed to look off in the distance when she said that. Naruto smiled even harder. I think it's official. I like you. I kinda hope that Ichigo doesn't kick your ass too hard when he comes to get me. Naruto laughed when she looked at him oddly. You're definitely the weirdest pirate I've ever come across. Ruko rolled her eyes. Hey, I've got a name, Naruto said. Oh yeah, and what is it? None of your business. Screw you. Ruko had heard the whole song and dance before. It's Naruto. You really just gave me your name. Ruko was stunned. Yeah, now you tell me yours. I don't want to just call you bounty hunter. Naruto grinned innocently. The girl thought for a moment, seeing the expectant face of her capty ... and a ruto ... and decided to humor him with an embarrassed blush as she kept walking. It's Ruko. Madoi Ruko. Nice to meet you, Ruko, Naruto chuckled. Yeah, this boy, Senketsu thought to himself. Upon arriving at the abandoned home, the two saw that, while being a tad rundown, wasn't in too terrible of shape. It was dusty and had cobwebs all over the place. The furniture was ratty with patches of its covering missing, but it was better than nothing. Ruko flopped onto the couch, deciding to stay in the living room since it was spacious in case Naruto's swordsman captain showed his face when she least expected it. Of course, the downside was that there was only one window that let the moonlight into the room, and it was above the couch that Ruko placed herself on with no electricity running to power the lights. It's getting pretty late. You sure that guy isn't just gonna leave you behind? Ruko had a leg resting on the coffee table in front of the couch, Naruto to her right with his head resting on the table and eyeballing the food, drooling slightly. Frankly, I'd want to cut loose a guy that gets caught within an hour of showing up. Ruko grabbed the bento and started to eat, agonizing the tied-up pirate who cried a stream of tears. He'll show up ... and I hope he does soon. Naruto groaned, stomach rumbling loudly. The girl decided to take pity on the blonde and shoved the rice balls in his direction. He perked up when he saw the delectable treats slide to a stop in front of him and looked to the girl as she stood up and headed to the bathroom adjacent to the living room. You can have em. I'm not hungry anymore, but don't expect me to untie you, she said from the bathroom as she took Senketsu off for the night and dressed into orange pajamas with rabbits on them that were slightly too small for her. Though when she left the room, she saw that the blonde had no problem with literally stuffing his face into the food to eat, smacking his lips noisily as he chewed. Most people hesitate when they're forced to eat like a pig. Emryo sma somfin. Naruto looked up when he heard her talk. Nothing, don't worry about it. Ruko sighed with a smirk as she hung Senketsu on a nail coming from the wall, and set her guitar case down next to the couch for ease of access if she had to fight. I don't think I like the fact that I'm getting used to you. She plopped back down onto her makeshift bed. Ah, that was great. Naruto sighed contentedly after finally being fed. Why are you a pirate? Ruko laid down on the couch with her arms behind her head, looking at the goofball. I mean, you don't act like one, don't talk like one. I just think that a guy like you wouldn't be a pirate without a good reason. Heh, I made a promise with someone that I'd become a great pirate and meet him again, so I could tell him the answer to an important question I have ... if I ever find the answer. Naruto smiled nostalgically. That's it. You don't want to find treasure or pillage, or even try to be the pirate king. Ruko seemed skeptical. Well, finding a treasure map would be neat, but no, I don't have any plans on doing that ... but who knows what'll happen. Naruto answered. He then blinked in realization. What about you? What? Well, you admitted that you weren't a bounty hunter just for the money. So, what are you a bounty hunter for? Naruto asked. Ruko suddenly became serious again, sitting up and laying her elbows across her knees, and her hair shadowed her eyes. I'm hunting a specific crew ... but they aren't anywhere in the blues ... they're in the Grand Line, she revealed. The Grand Line, Naruto said in surprise. Then those guys must be seriously strong. Rumored to be. If I want to get there, then I need money and a better ship ... so I decided to take advantage of the great pirate era and become a bounty hunter. But I've been stuck here because of paying off all the destruction I cause and the smaller amount of pirates risking coming here, Ruko explained. Kind of a dummy then, huh? Naruto said and received a soul to his face. The point is, I'm hunting that crew. Ruko had a vein pulsing on her head. What crew is it? Naruto asked, his face smoking from the blow he'd been given. Ruko went silent, darted her eyes to the side, and turned her back to the blonde as she decided to sleep now and avoid the question. Just go to sleep. If that friend of yours is going to show up, I want to be ready for him. Okay, then. The blonde instantly fell asleep and began snoring with a snot bubble inflating and deflating in tandem with his breathing. Ruko meanwhile was glaring so hard at the cushions in front of her face it was a wonder that a hole didn't get burned through them. She grit her teeth in anger just remembering the name of the pirate crew that had taken so much from her. The Kuryuan Pirates. Ruko, you've only spent a few hours with this boy ... and yet you have opened yourself more to him than any other human you've come across on our journey. Senketsu trailed his eye once again to Naruto as the blonde slept. He has a special kind of energy about him. I don't think that there is a doubt in my mind anymore on just who you are. Naruto, the clothing reasoned to itself before sleeping. Above the sleeping Ruko, the moon shone brightly into the room before being obscured by a crop of orange hair rising from the bottom of the window pane slowly. A large ship that was pure white was making its way toward the island of Harnuno with great haste. Inside there was a good number of crew members that were shuffling about to keep the vessel moving at a good pace, and they were all wearing the same gray uniform with a single black star emblazoned on the torso. Inside the command center of the ship, two individuals were speaking to one another, cloaked in shadow due to the night sky and lack of lighting in the command center. One of the figures stood with its hands in its pockets, a long coat seemingly being worn by it, and a silver sheen glinting from its apparel. The other figure sat in a comfortable chair, the first figure standing vigilant next to the sedentary one. The shadow much too heavy to make out any discernible characteristics other than its piercing blue eyes. We are on the approach, milady. I've been told that we should arrive at the island the target is inhabiting by early morning if not a little later. The first shadowed figure spoke with a distinctly male voice. Good, we've devoted far too much time to such a small nuisance and yet we've no idea why. The sitting, a female, spoke in an elegant and flat tone, taking a sip of tea from the cup in her hands. My thoughts exactly, milady. A loud, new voice came into the command center before taking a knee to show reverence to the woman. Just what are you doing here? The standing figure turned to regard the newcomer. Shouldn't you be preparing to disembark, like the rest? If you're slacking off, the man began to threaten but was stopped by the newcomer. Of course not, sir. The new figure rose its head to look the two leaders in the eye. I just understand how much this means to milady. Neither of you should have to dirty your hands with a commoner such as our target, so I'm volunteering myself as an advance unit to take care of her before your arrival. The boisterous figure stated with confidence. You, getting kinda full of yourself ain't ya? This girl isn't a pushover, you know. If she's on our radar, then she can't be all that she appears, not to mention the small bit of clout she's gathered for herself here in the South. The male voice reprimanded the cocky newcomer. I'll allow it. The two figures turned to the one female in the room as she spoke with authority. You can go and retrieve our objective ahead of us, but I expect success, or a punishment will be in order, the woman told the newcomer. I shall not fail, milady. Long as we're sending someone, might as well give him some support. Better to crush her than give her a chance of winning, right? The man offered. I see no problem with it. Yo, get out here. The man shouted and was met with another female coming into the room, bowing the same as the newcomer. Yes, sir. You two are going after our target ahead of us, so we can pop and grab her and leave. Don't mess it up, the man told them. Of course, sir. It will be done. The woman stood up and grinned, showing her shark-like teeth. She won't know what hit her when I get through. TCH, that's if I leave you anything left after I've gone a couple rounds with her. The newcomer said with a grin of his own that it was missing a tooth. All while this was happening, Ruko slept, tossing and turning in her sleep as she had a dream of her past. Thank you for watching. Make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a video. And comment down your opinion on this video. Thanks for stopping by, and I'll see you in the next one.